Kunlun City, 5th People's Hospital, outside the intensive care unit, staring at his gravely injured unconscious parents, Chun-Yi clenched his fists, his face twisted with rage. Half a month earlier, his younger sister, who had just awakened a God-grade star, cultivation talent, had suddenly vanished. Days of police reports yielded neither trace of her living body nor her corpse. Unable to sit idle, Chun-Yi's parents set out to search for her in person. After a week of relentless investigation, they finally uncovered clues and headed for the Security Bureau to submit evidence and demand a full investigation. But disaster struck on the way. They chanced upon a group of drunk martial artists who beat them severely for no discernible reason. Only timely medical intervention had saved their lives. Today, the Security Bureau delivered its official response. The incident was written off as pure coincidence. The men had merely been drunk and acting recklessly, inflicting harm by accident. They had been arrested, pleaded guilty, and shown good remorse. Pleaded guilty and shown good remorse. A coincidence? An accident? Chun-Yi sneered inwardly. He turned his gaze to his right, narrowed his eyes, and muttered under his breath. Are those two men who have been watching me day and night for 5 days also a coincidence? Few family members lingered on this ICU-designated floor. Most figures were doctors and nurses in white coats. Thus, two men in suits sitting on a rest bench, pretending to scroll through their phones while secretly locking eyes on Chun-Yi, stood out blatantly. Yet they showed no concern. When Chun-Yi met their gaze, they stared right back, their eyes cold, as if looking at a dead man. You want to kill me? Chun-Yi whispered to himself. These two men had appeared silently the moment his parents were rushed into emergency care. Like barnacles, they had tailed him non-stop. At first they exercised caution, hiding carefully to avoid being spotted. But as Chun-Yi refused to leave the hospital, their patience wore thin. Their conduct grew brazen, and their killing intent grew increasingly obvious. Chun-Yi suspected that if he did not step outside soon, they would strike and kill him right inside the hospital. He drew a long breath, forcing himself to calm down. He pulled out his phone and stared fixedly at the screen as time ticked by. Anticipation grew across his features. 11:58, 11:59, 12:00. Daily time reset. All attributes doubled. Name: Chun-Yi. Age: 19. Realm: none. Constitution: 232. Value after doubling. Spirit: 256. Comprehension: 320. Star: Cultivation talent: 24% medium. Skills: 6th generation calisthenics perfected. Basic hand: 2. Hand combat perfected. This system had appeared 5 days ago. Its function was simple. Every noon at 12 o'clock, all attributes would automatically double, with no upper limit. During his days hiding in the hospital, Chun-Yi's attributes had rocketed from single digits to over 200. Seeing the panel, Chun-Yi said softly, "It's about time." With determined eyes, he turned and left. Outside the hospital, the weather was fine and a soft breeze blew. Much of Chun-Yi's long, suppressed frustration ebbed away. Glancing backward, he saw the two men still following. Their gazes were icy, fixed firmly on him, killing intent laid bare. Chun-Yi ignored them. He crossed the street and walked into a martial arts gym. He paid the fee and got his membership card in one smooth motion, without the slightest hesitation. My attributes are indeed high, already surpassing human limits and comparable to formal martial artists, Chun-Yi thought. But raw attributes amount to nothing more than brute strength. I cannot even guarantee handling those two stalkers, let alone avenge my parents or uncover my sister's disappearance. Chun-Yi was no fool. Everything that had happened must tie back to his sister's star, cultivation talent. If he wanted to uncover the truth, he had to practice martial arts and raise his combat power. Simply lying low and waiting for daily attribute multipliers left him vulnerable to unforeseen accidents. Moreover, he had no wish to hide. He needed answers fast. He needed to find his sister. When is the next available class? Chun-Yi asked the front desk after registering. Time was too precious to waste. Starts in 5 minutes. 3rd floor, first training room on the left. Instructor Zhang Su will lead the session. He is a body, refinement mid-stage martial artist, a junior gym instructor with 6 years of teaching experience. He is patient and well-suited for new students. Chun-Yi nodded and followed the signs to the training room. Several people, mostly teenagers, were already waiting inside. Footsteps echoed shortly afterward. A burly middle-aged man in blue instructor's uniform walked in. He wore a gentle smile as he scanned the room. "I am Zhang Su," he announced. "Junior instructor at Luoshi Martial Arts Gym. I teach 2 sessions every Monday through Friday, 12:20 p.m. and 2:20 p.m. Feel free to join during those hours. Yes, Instructor Zhang. The students responded in unison as they formed two neat lines. Jiangsu nodded and continued. As everyone knows, Blue Star has two cultivation systems. The new art, Star, cultivation. The old art, Vital, blood martial arts. Star, cultivation is powerful. It draws stellar power and can unleash mighty techniques. Yet the old art holds its own. It is the product of countless generations of our ancestors, passed down for tens of thousands of years. Master it, and you will have more than enough strength for self, defense, or earning a living. Everyone present understood the unspoken truth. Anyone with Star, cultivation talent would never bother learning martial arts. Star, cultivation offers fast progress, low resource requirements, formidable techniques, and complete inheritance. In merely 100 years, it has birthed 9 star gods who tower over the world as the most powerful cultivators. Vital blood martial arts, by contrast, advances slowly, demands scarce resources, and suffers from monopolized techniques. It carries many rigid traditions and places heavy emphasis on character and comprehension. Given equal talent and equal practice time, a star cultivator can reach the 3rd or 4th realm within a single year, while a vital blood martial artist may still be polishing the foundations of the 1st realm. Chun-Yi shook his head silently. He possessed star cultivation talent. Though originally meager, 5 days of doubling had lifted it to 24%, a medium rating. Even so, it remained insufficient. Practicing it now would be a waste. He would wait until it hit 100% and became god grade. For the moment, his amplified attributes suited martial arts far better. I wonder how effective 320 points of comprehension will prove, Chun-Yi murmured. Zhang Su began formal instruction. Black Tiger Stance. This is our gym's foundational body, refinement stance. It tempers the flesh, strengthens bones, and sinew. In martial arts, foundations are paramount. The better refined your physique, the faster you will advance once you rouse your vital blood. Watch closely and copy my posture. Zhang Su adopted a peculiar stance, claws for hands, back slightly arched, weight balanced on the tips of his toes, every muscle tensed. He resembled a crouching black tiger. With long, measured breaths, his skin and flesh trembled visibly. The students quickly found positions and copied the pose as best they could. Chun-Yi alone stared intently at Zhang Su. His eyes flashed with surprise. In the next instant, he mirrored the stance, yet his details, form, and inner aura were more refined and authentic, as though he had practiced Black Tiger stance for decades. As Chun-Yi drew one breath, his own flesh trembled. A surge of scorching energy rose from his body, instantly drawing everyone's attention. What is that heat? Good heavens, vital blood is boiling. Someone has reached body, refinement perfection. How is that possible? Reaching body, refinement perfection on one's very first martial arts lesson? Don't be naive. This man is clearly already trained. He's pretending to be a beginner. Voices of surprise and speculation filled the room. Zhang Su, who had maintained his perfect Black Tiger stance, broke his posture. He stared fixedly at Chun-Yi. Surprise gave way to shock, then darkened into displeasure. Chun-Yi paid no mind to the commotion around him. His full attention rested on his system panel. Realm, body, refinement perfected. Skills, 6th generation calisthenics perfected, basic hand. 2. Hand combat perfected, Black Tiger stance perfected. Black Tiger stance had maxed out instantly, pushing his realm straight to body, refinement perfection. Joy flared inside Chun-Yi. 320 points of comprehension exceeded his expectations. Merely watching Zhang Su's demonstration allowed his mind to simulate countless repetitions. Force, application, and breathing rhythms fused seamlessly. Furthermore, the first realm of vital blood martial arts was body, refinement. Its core lay in tempering skin, flesh, sinew, and bone with techniques, strengthening one's physique until blood boiled. Ordinary practitioners spent at least 2 years clearing this stage. Chun-Yi's case was different. Days of attribute doubling had brought his constitution to 232, far exceeding normal human limits. His physical power was already sufficient. All he had lacked was the final trigger. Black Tiger stance provided it. As the technique activated, his immense physical foundation ignited his vital blood. He crossed the threshold without encountering even a moment of bottleneck. Which gym sent you to cause trouble? A sharp shout snapped Chun-Yi back to reality. Zhang Su strode forward, his face livid. The gentle demeanor of an instructor vanished entirely. Chun-Yi dropped the stance, and his surging vital blood gradually subsided. I just bought a membership today. I came here to learn martial arts. Nonsense, Zhang Su swore, jabbing a finger toward Chen Yi. You mastered Black Tiger's stance just from watching once. Do you take me for a fool? A body, refinement perfection expert shows up at my class just to play the genius novice? What game are you playing? Speak. Who sent you to pull such cheap tricks? The surrounding students murmured in realization. So he is here to challenge our gym. I thought as much. No one masters a stance at first sight. He was already skilled and came here to show off. Shameless. He put on quite an act. Whispers followed. Chen Yi saw that Zhang Su was thoroughly convinced of his false accusation. No explanation would change his mind. In this world, no normal person could perfect a stance after a single observation. Seeing no point in arguing, Chen Yi spoke plainly. If you do not welcome me, refund my money. Give me back the 1,000 yuan I just paid, and I will leave at once. Zhang Su let out a cold laugh. A refund? You come to Luoshi Martial Arts Gym to stir up trouble and expect your money back? Get out now, before I call others. Then you will have far worse problems than a denied refund. Chen Yi's expression turned grim. 1,000 yuan had once covered half his monthly living expenses. Circumstances had changed. His sister was missing. His parents lay in critical care. Medical bills mounted astronomically. The family home had already been sold, and their remaining savings would not last many more days. Every yuan counted. He had spent less than 10 minutes inside the gym. They would simply swallow his payment? Not a chance. I will say this one more time. Refund my money. Chen Yi's tone turned icy. He took one step forward. Oh, you dare push back? Though his words rang bold, Zhang Su involuntarily took half a step backward. He was only body, refinement mid-stage. In direct combat, he could not defeat a body, refinement perfection foe. Yet he felt safe. This was Luoshi Martial Arts Gym. More instructors stood at hand. True enough, another voice cut through the tension. A refund? If you can withstand 2 of my moves, you shall have your money back. A stocky man marched into the training room from the doorway. He wore fitted combat attire embroidered with a golden character Luo on his chest. Zhang Su's eyes lit up, and he hurried over. Instructor Su, what brings you here? This was Su Ji, senior instructor of Luoshi Martial Arts Gym, a martial artist at the early stage of the second realm, body forging. He glanced at Zhang Su. I was passing by and heard shouting. I came to investigate. He sneered. I never imagined someone would dare make trouble inside our gym. He stepped before Chen Yi, undisguised scorn in his eyes. Young man, I have seen countless underhanded schemes between competing martial art schools, but few dare provoke us openly in broad daylight. Leave while my temper holds, or you will regret the outcome. The students stepped back, clearing space for the 2 men. Instructor Su is here. This kid is finished. He is a body forging expert. He can shatter stone slabs with one palm. Serves him right. He came here to pick a fight. Chen Yi said nothing. Believing Chen Yi was intimidated, Su Ji grew impatient. Silent? Lost your nerve? Then get out of here. With that, Su Ji stretched out his right hand and shoved toward Chen Yi's shoulder. He used only 3/10 of his full strength. An ordinary body, refinement perfection warrior would have stumbled several steps and fallen flat, a humiliating lesson. His palm struck Chen Yi's shoulder with a heavy thud. To everyone's surprise, Chen Yi stood rooted to the ground, not swaying in the slightest. Instead, Su Ji felt as though he had rammed into solid rock. A numbing shock traveled up his wrist. He frowned sharply. You have some strength. Su Ji's muscles bulged. Veins popped across his arms. He pressed down with his full, powered strike. Kneel. Terrifying force bore down. Tiles beneath Chen Yi's feet cracked under the strain. Still Chen Yi did not budge. He lifted his eyes and met Su Ji's gaze with calm indifference. Chen Yi raised his right hand and seized Su Ji's wrist, which still pressed against his shoulder. Take your hand off me. Chen Yi's voice was quiet. His palm pressed downward, unleashing overwhelming brute force born from his 232-point constitution. A grisly creak of grinding bone echoed through the room. Su Ji's arm bent downward against his will. He nearly dropped to his knees. Damn it! Su Ji's eyes blazed red. Veins bulged across his forehead. He clamped his left hand onto Chen Yi's right wrist, pouring every ounce of strength into prying it upward. His face turned purple, blood vessels in his neck threatening to burst. Chen Yi's hand stayed steady, pressing slowly but relentlessly downwards. Su Ji could not shift it even a fraction. Every student stared in stunned silence. The entire training room fell deathly quiet. Zhang Su's jaw hung open. Shock overwhelmed him. This body, forging, realm senior instructor was being overpowered single-handed by a teenage boy. How could this be? You. Su Ji snarled. He wrenched free, risking dislocation, and scrambled backward 3 or 4 paces. Gasping for breath, he stared at his trembling wrist, then at the shocked faces of the onlookers. Burning shame flooded over him. As a senior instructor and body, forging, realm warrior, he had almost been forced to his knees in public by a youngster. I will destroy you. Rage consumed Suji. His vital blood erupted outward. At the body, forging realm, boiling blood surged to the surface, wreathing his right hand in faint crimson vital blood flame. He has ignited vital blood flame, one student shouted. Body, forging practitioners refine and temper their vital blood countless times. Once purified to a high degree, vital blood flame manifests. Though instructor Su has only reached the early body, forging stage and can only conjure flame over one hand, his power far surpasses any body refinement fighter. Everyone stand clear, do not get caught in the crossfire. The students hurried toward the walls. Zhang Su shouted in alarm. Instructor Su, do not kill him. Suji paid no heed. His eyes locked onto Chun-Yi. His right fist, shrouded in scorching vital blood flame, roared toward Chun-Yi's head, bent on delivering lethal harm. Chun-Yi stood still as the blazing fist drew near. He did not dodge. His body reacted before his mind could think. Left fist clenched, waist twisted sharply, every muscle tensed. No fancy techniques, only raw, unbridled power. He threw his own fist straight forward, meeting Su Ji's flaming blow head-on. A deafening crash resounded as the fists collided. Immediately afterward came a sickening crack of snapping bone. The vital blood flame on Su Ji's fist vanished instantly. His entire right arm bent grotesquely. Splintered bone jutted through torn skin, and blood gushed forth. Ah! Su Ji screamed in agony. His body flew backward and slammed hard against the wall. Cracks spiderwebbed across the plaster. He slid down to the floor, clutching his broken arm and rolling in torment, his cries piercing the silence. Complete stillness descended over the training room. The students who had jeered moments before fell mute. Some stood gaping, unable to close their mouths. A water cup slipped from one student's grasp and clattered across the floor. Two onlookers who had leaned forward for a better view dared not even breathe loudly. Rage froze on Zhang Su's face. He glanced at Su Ji's mangled arm, then back at Chun-Yi's retracted fist. His throat bobbed, and he edged backward on trembling legs. A single punch had shattered the arm of an early-stage body, forging warrior. What kind of monster was this young man? At the Luo Martial Hall, apart from the hall master and two other senior martial instructors, he was the most capable figure to prop up the establishment. This outcome far exceeded his comprehension. The first realm, body refining. The second realm, 100 forging. Body refining tempers the skin, flesh, tendons, and bones. One learns to sense Ki-blood, and only when Ki-blood boils does one reach the pinnacle of this realm. 100 forging requires repeated refinement of the blood, thickening Ki-blood, and greatly elevating one's physical form. Against a punch from a 100 forging realm practitioner, an ordinary peak body refining warrior cannot withstand the blow at all. Yet now, Suji had his arm broken by a single punch from Chun-Yi. This meant the opponent was not in the body refining realm at all, but 100 forging, or even higher. Leaning against the wall, Suji ground his teeth till they creaked. His eyes reddened as he fixed his gaze on Chun-Yi. You are definitely not at body refining. He gasped heavily. Your physical body is stronger than mine. No sooner had the words left his mouth than exclamations broke out one after another inside the training hall. Stronger than Instructor Su? Then what was that breakthrough to peak body refining he showed just now? He must have already reached 100 forging, pretending to be a new apprentice for fun. Are you mad? Would a 100 forging expert trick people out of 1,000 yuan membership fee? Rumors twisted further and further with every retelling. Chun-Yi offered no explanation. There was no point in explaining. His realm was genuinely peak body refining, which he had only just broken through. But his physique was far beyond that of an ordinary body refining practitioner. His system doubled his physique every day, pushing his physical attributes to new heights first. His realm only filled in the missing step of circulating Ki-blood. 232 physique points. Judging from their earlier clash, Su Ji's physical strength barely topped 100. It was only natural that Su Ji would suffer in a heating collision. Chun-Yi turned toward Zhang Su. Refund my money. At those two words, Zhang Su's face twitched. Moments earlier, he would have flown into a rage. But with Su Ji's cries of pain still ringing in his ears, he dared not charge forward. Still, to issue a refund in front of so many apprentices amounted to openly admitting that the Luo Martial Hall feared this outsider. Zhang Su glanced over at Su Ji. Su Ji's lips blanched with pain, his eyes burning with ferocity. Call for help. Seeing his opening, Jiangsu spun around and roared toward the door. Go get the hall master. Hurry. Someone is here to challenge our hall and has injured Instructor Su. An apprentice by the doorway sprinted off, his shoes scraping sharply against the corridor floor. Chen Yi frowned. Things had spiraled out of control. He had no time to waste at the Luo Martial Hall. Beat one man, and another would come. Who knew what kind of commotion would erupt? Chen Yi turned and headed for the exit. Zhang Su's expression shifted. He darted forward to block the way, yet dared not lay hands on Chen Yi. You've injured our instructor, and you still want to leave? Several loyal disciples of the martial hall closed in around him. They gripped training wooden staffs. Their stances unsteady, yet their shouts fierce. You will not step out of this door until you make amends. Is the Luo Martial Hall some place you can come and go as you please? Kill us all if you dare, or you are not getting away. Chen Yi swept his gaze over them. Most of these men had not even stepped into the body refining realm. If he fought for real, he could knock each of them down with one blow. But this was a martial hall. If he fought his way out, the trouble would only grow worse. Chen Yi halted by the doorway. Move aside. No one budged. Some of Zhang Su's terror faded as he hid behind the crowd, and he raised his voice again. Hold him off. The hall master will be here any moment. He pointed at Chen Yi and shouted. You hurt someone and think you can just walk away? Not a chance. Chen Yi glanced back at Zhang Su. Zhang Su flinched, yet refused to fall silent. Do not think you are invincible just because you can fight. The Luo Martial Hall has stood for more than 20 years. Do you truly believe there is no one who can deal with you? Chen Yi grew tired of the bickering and prepared to force his way through. That brief delay bought just enough time for a string of rapid footsteps to draw near. Moments later, more than a dozen people flooded into the training hall. At the head walked an elderly man with grizzled hair, dressed in black training robes, short of stature and slightly stooped. He leaned on a walking cane. The instant he stepped inside, the apprentices on either side scattered to make way. The golden embroidered character Luo on his chest was larger than the one on Su Ji's uniform. This was Luo Yonghu, master of the Luo Martial Hall. In his youth, he had reached the 100 forging peak. Years spent running the hall for profit had deprived him of life-and-death combat, and his Kiblood had declined drastically. Yet his reputation endured. Following him were two middle-aged men also clad in combat robes, their chests likewise stitched with the golden character Luo. They were the hall's other two senior martial instructors. Together with Su Ji, these three made up the full complement of senior instructors of the Luo Martial Hall. All of them had arrived. The apprentice who had run for help pushed to the front, pointing at Chen Yi, his face flushed with urgency. Hall master, it is him. He pretended to be a new apprentice for class. He showed off during Instructor Zhang's lesson first, then injured Instructor Su. He is clearly here to challenge our hall. Zhang Su quickly chimed in. Hall master, I sensed something was off about him from the very start. He claimed to be a beginner, yet he executed the Black Tiger stance at perfection. That sort of thing does not happen. Su Ji clutched his broken wrist, sweat streaming down his forehead. Hall master Luo, waste no words on him. This boy possesses an extraordinary physical body. He must have powerful backers. Luo Yonghu came to a stop. He first examined Su Ji's injury, then turned his gaze onto Chen Yi. The old man's face darkened further and further. Chen Yi studied him in return. Advanced in years, Luo Yonghu lacked Su Ji's surging Kiblood, yet he stood rock-solid where he was. This old man was more dangerous than Su Ji. At Chen Yi's current strength, he could not treat him as an ordinary early-stage 100-forging warrior. Spectators packed the space outside the training hall. Some apprentices secretly held up mobile phones to film, while others beside them whispered for them to stop recording, yet still craned their necks to watch. Luo Yonghu's jaw tightened. A martial hall feared nothing more than a ruined reputation. If Chen Yi walked away today, word would spread to every other martial hall by tomorrow. Stories would circulate that the Luo Martial Hall had been overwhelmed by a young man, unable even to detain him. Once such rumors took hold, the 20-year-old reputation of the Luo school would be trampled into the dust. Luo Yonghu advanced 2 steps. The 2 senior instructors behind him moved forward as well, positioning themselves on either side to seal the last gaps of the exit. His cane struck the tile floor. Thud. How bold! Luo Yonghu's voice rumbled, suppressed fury boiling in his throat. You dare stir up trouble within my Luo Martial Hall and injure my instructors. He lifted his cane and pointed it straight at Chen Yi. Speak. Whose subordinate are you? Which martial hall sent you here to provoke us? Chen Yi's expression turned grim. He had merely come to train. He had paid for membership, learned one stance, only to be labeled a challenger. Not a single person had bothered to hear him out. He glanced at Luo Yonghu, then at the 2 men blocking the doorway, forcing down the irritation building inside him. I only signed up today to learn martial arts. I paid 1,000 yuan membership fee. Zhang Su was the first to accuse me of coming to challenge the hall. I asked for a refund so I could leave, and Su Ji struck first. Luo Yonghu struck his cane against the ground, cutting him off mid-sentence. Enough. Several apprentices shrank backward, hastily hiding their phones behind their backs. Luo Yonghu stared hard at Chun Yi, anger smoldering in his eyes. You come to my hall to cause trouble, wound one of my instructors, and now you think a few words will smooth everything over? Do you take me for a feeble old man? Anger finally welled up inside Chun Yi, hard to contain. You condemn me for making trouble without even hearing my side of the story? I have run a martial hall for more than 20 years. I have seen every kind of person. Luo Yonghu strode forward 2 steps and tossed his cane aside. Spare me your talk. If you have come to challenge us, settle this with your fists. As he finished speaking, he raised both palms. Pale red Kiblood flames flickered across his skin. The aura they gave off was restrained, yet far more concentrated than Su Ji's wild, explosive outbursts. His aura washed outward. The apprentices in the front row paled and stepped several paces backward. At that moment, the 2 senior instructors at the doorway moved. One circled toward Chun Yi's flank, while the other charged forward along his shoulder line, sealing off every possible avenue of retreat. 3 men attacked together. Everyone inside the training hall fell into stunned silence. The hall master is fighting personally. He has brought along the 2 senior instructors. This young man is finished. The apprentices drew back, none daring to utter a sound, and not a single voice spoke up in Chun Yi's defense. In their eyes, Chun Yi was the challenger who had injured Instructor Su. It seemed only right that the hall master and his instructors would close in on him. Chun Yi could not help but let out a bitter laugh. He had arrived at this martial hall, paid his money, and simply hoped to master the Black Tiger stance. To complete the first step of Kiblood cultivation. Barely 2 minutes of learning, and he had been branded a troublemaking challenger. He had tried to explain reasonably, yet no one listened. He had tried to walk away peacefully, even foregoing his payment, yet they would not let him go. Now 3 men attacked him all at once, denying him even the chance to speak. Even clay dolls can grow angry. Very well. Let us see whose bones are stronger. Seeing that Chun Yi had not even summoned Kiblood flames of his own, Luo Yonghu's expression darkened further. Arrogant. In his prime, Luo Yonghu had reached 100 forging peak and earned a name for himself in Kunlun City. Once he opened his martial hall, his life grew comfortable. Denied life-or-death combat year after year, his Kiblood waned. Now he only possessed the power of mid-stage 100 forging. Still, his foundations remained solid. His experience, technique, and command over Kiblood far outshone Su Ji in every respect. This young man before him stood there relying solely on his flesh, without unleashing a wisp of Kiblood. To Luo Yonghu, this was an open-faced insult. Today I shall cripple you. Luo Yonghu took 3 quick strides forward and struck his palm toward Chun Yi's chest. The force of the palm hit first, and the heat of Kiblood flames pricked at the skin. His speed was considerable. His angle crafty, the skill of a lifetime-long fighter. Chun Yi did not retreat. He drew his right fist back beside his waist, lowered his stance, and only unleashed his punch when Luo Yonghu's hand drew within 3 feet of his body. Boom. Fist and palm collided. Shock waves blasted outward, sending clouds of dust swirling off the floor tiles. Luo Yonghu slid half a step backward. His palm throbbed, his aching tiger's mouth throbbing. His gaze filled with disbelief. This youth had not released any Kiblood flames at all. He had withstood his palm strike purely through physical strength alone. Luo Yonghu ground his back teeth together. He forced forth Kiblood he had rarely summoned in full force for years. The crimson flames on his palms thickened, and his overall aura surged. He roared, stacking both palms together, pouring all his Kiblood into the strike, and hurled it straight toward Chun Yi's chest. This blow was nearly twice as powerful as the last. The air hummed under the pressure. Yet Chun Yi still refused to step back. He advanced 1 step, swung his right fist in a full circle, twisted his waist and abdomen. Channeling every ounce of power from his 232 physique points straight into his knuckles. He punched Hedon into the roiling Kiblood flames. Boom. Crack. The sharp sound of shattering bone rang out instantly. The Kiblood flames on Luo Yonghu's hand scattered. His palm caved inward, and both wrists bent grotesquely outward. His body lifted off the ground. He bounced once across the floor, before finally rolling to a halt against the wall corner. Hallmaster! Zhang Su shrieked. The senior instructor on the left paled, yet his fist was already flying toward Chun Yi's ribs. The other man gritted his teeth and sped up, crossing his arms to lock Chun-Yi the moment he finished his punch. Witnessing their hall master sent flying with one blow clouded their minds, yet they could not halt their momentum, and charged onward regardless. Die! Chun-Yi stepped backward twice to create distance. The soles of his shoes grated against broken shards on the floor. He twisted his torso and lashed out with a leg. No fancy named technique, no complicated variations. Only speed, only crushing weight. Both men raised their arms to block. As the left side instructor lifted his forearms, he felt the overwhelming force of the incoming kick. That strength, he never finished his sentence. Chun-Yi's leg crashed against his forearms. Crack! Both arms caved inward with a sickening crunch. His chest absorbed the follow-through impact. His body flew sideways, crashing through 3 rows of training wooden stakes and knocking over racks of equipment. The second instructor was only half a beat slow. Chun-Yi's kick continued with his spin, sweeping toward him. He crossed his arms tightly over his chest in defense. Crack! His protecting arms bent at unnatural angles. Violent shock reverberated through his sternum. He flew backward toward the doorway, crashing into the crowd of apprentices. 2 youths who failed to dodge were knocked over. He collapsed at the feet of the disciples, curled up in agony. A deathly hush fell over the training hall, even more profound than when Su Ji's arm had been broken. Su Ji's screams had fallen silent. Leaning against the wall, all color drained from his face. He glanced at the fallen Luo Yonghu, then turned his eyes toward Chun-Yi. A hoarse sound rumbled in his throat, yet he could not form a complete word. An apprentice who had secretly been recording dropped his phone in shock. Zhang Su cowered within the crowd, his knees trembling uncontrollably. He stared at the injured Luo Yonghu and the 2 disabled instructors, overcome with bewilderment. Had even the hall master lost? Who could they possibly call for help now? Chun-Yi lowered his leg, his breathing steady. This fight gave him a clear understanding of his own strength. Luo Yonghu was stronger than Su Ji and far more seasoned in combat. Nevertheless, the gap in raw physical attributes was insurmountable. The Luo martial hall had exhausted its full strength. Its most powerful figure was only mid-stage 100 forging. His true combat power barely above Su Ji. With 232 physique points in his favor, raw physical superiority allowed him to overpower even veteran masters, even without refined, elaborate techniques. When the gap in strength grew this vast, fine technique counted for little. Chun-Yi walked over to Luo Yonghu. The old man had just struggled to sit upright, propped against the wall, tilting his head back to look upward. All his rage and authority had vanished, replaced by unmasked fear. For 20-plus years running the martial hall, he had seen countless scenes. Yet never had he been struck down so thoroughly he could barely stand. What realm was this young man truly in? Chun-Yi halted before him, looking down. What do you say now? Leaning against the wall, Luo Yonghu winced from pain in his chest. His wrists hung limp, useless. He lifted his gaze toward Chun-Yi. His face turned a mottled purple-blue. Blood stained the corner of his mouth, and cold sweat dripped from his chin onto the tiles. His lips trembled. He wanted to spit out threats. But when he met Chun-Yi's calm eyes, every word died in his throat. You. Only one syllable escaped, then faded away. The silence hung heavy. A dozen apprentices huddled in corners, pressed against the walls, none daring to glance too long. Luo Yonghu closed his eyes briefly and swallowed his bitter humiliation. What do you want? He was a far cry from the man who had roared that he would cripple Chun-Yi moments before. Chun-Yi studied him. I want my refuge. He cut himself off mid-sentence and scanned the room. A refund? 1,000 yuan. What good would that do? 1,000 yuan would not solve his real troubles. The truth behind his sister's disappearance remained unknown. His parents lay in intensive care. 2 unknown stalkers still tailed him out in the world. He possessed great physical power, yet he had no clear path forward for advancing his Ki-blood cultivation. The Black Tiger stance was merely foundational body refining practice. He needed complete, systematic martial arts manuals to progress further. Chun-Yi withdrew his gaze. Find some place private to talk. Luo Yonghu stared in surprise. He had expected Chun-Yi to humiliate him publicly or make some outrageous demand. A private conversation? Dread coiled in his chest. Yet he was in no position to refuse. Gritting his teeth, Luo Yonghu pushed himself unsteadily to his feet. His useless wrists dangled at his sides. He looked 10 years older than when he had first entered the training hall. Follow me. He walked out of the training hall. Chun-Yi trailed behind. They passed through corridors and climbed to the 4th floor. The hall master's office occupied the innermost room. Once the door shut, all outside stares and whispers were sealed away. The office was spacious. A mahogany desk sat alongside large genuine leather sofas. A whole row of gleaming Marshall Hall trophies lined the floor-to-ceiling window. Chun-Yi walked inside and pulled out a chair to sit down. Luo Yonghu leaned against his desk, his face ashen, watching Chun-Yi warily. Chun-Yi got straight to the point. Hand over the core cultivation manual of the Luo Marshall Hall. Luo Yonghu's expression shifted sharply. Impossible. His voice rose sharply, veins bulging on his neck. Do you understand what you are asking for? Our cultivation manuals are the lifeblood of this hall, how we make our living. I will never give them up. Chun-Yi said nothing. He leaned back in his chair and watched Luo Yonghu coldly. No overt threats. No show of violence. Just quiet observation. Silence filled the office. At first, Luo Yonghu held his ground and glared back. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. Chun-Yi's eyes held no fury, no killing intent. That very calm sent cold creeping down Luo Yonghu's spine. Downstairs, Chun-Yi had defeated him and disabled 3 instructors without even unleashing Kiblood flames. If he wished, he could snap Luo Yonghu's neck in this very room before he could cry out for help. As the silence dragged on, Luo Yonghu's eyelid twitched. He pressed his lips tightly together and finally turned his head aside. You may view it alone only. The words were forced out between gritted teeth, thick with bitter humiliation. The old veteran valued his life above all else. Using the hand that still retained limited mobility, he retrieved his mobile phone and navigated to an encrypted folder. He then opened a lower desk drawer and pulled out a black tablet. He scanned it with his phone, and the tablet lit up. We used to have paper manuscripts long ago, but they were all destroyed. Luo Yonghu pushed the tablet across the desk, his tone hollow yet simmering with suppressed anger. What you see here are instructional videos I recorded during my middle-aged years. The Black Tiger Art, 2 volumes in total. The first volume covers body refining, peaking at peak body refining. The second volume focuses on blood tempering, reaching up to 100 forging peak. It also includes the Black Tiger Palm technique and the Black Tiger Step movement art. Everything is within these videos. Watch them for yourself. He fell silent after speaking. Chun-Yi picked up the tablet. He unlocked the screen and opened the folder labeled Cultivation Manual Instruction. The videos were arranged in sequential order. The first file, Black Tiger Art Volume 1. On screen appeared a man in black training robes, in his 40s, tall and powerfully built, brimming with Kiblood. It was Luo Yonghu in his prime. Back then, Luo Yonghu had stood at 100 forging peak. With one palm strike, his sleeves cracked like thunder. Each step he took sent faint tremors through the blue brick courtyard ground. As Kiblood surged, a faint crimson mist hovered over his skin. Staring at his younger self on screen, Luo Yonghu's gaze grew distant. That was when I first attained 100 forging peak. His voice turned low, mingling remnants of pride and deep-seated regret. Sadly, I have grown old. When Kiblood fades and bones turn brittle, even the finest martial arts retain little of their former power. Chun-Yi ignored his remark and kept his eyes fixed on the video. On screen, Luo Yonghu demonstrated the complete set of movements 3 times in succession. Breathing rhythms, Kiblood circulation paths, and power-generating techniques were all narrated in voiceover. Chun-Yi watched it only once. Every detail of the manual automatically disassembled, reorganized, and completed within his mind. His 320-point comprehension stat activated. In less than 2 seconds, the entire first volume manual went from foreign to fully understood. The second file, Black Tiger Art Volume 2. Compared to the first volume, the blood tempering methods were far more complex. It covered Kiblood externalization, Kiblood flame condensation, and repeated refinement of impure blood. The movements were broad-ranging, and explanations of Kiblood circulation routes were extremely thorough. Chun-Yi stared unblinking at the screen. Gradually, his breathing synchronized with the movements shown in the recording. Inside his mind, a phantom copy of himself reenacted the art over and over. Once, 10 times, 100 times, 10,000 times. Every bottleneck shattered. The 2 volumes fused completely. Third file, Black Tiger Palm. Fourth file, Black Tiger Step. His palm strikes were fierce and powerful, his footwork nimble and agile. Each attack and defense perfectly complemented the Black Tiger art. After watching, Chun-Yi remained seated in the chair, yet a dull rumble suddenly echoed from within his body. His skin, flesh, tendons, and bones trembled in response. His original 232-point constitution had long been like a dammed-up flood with no outlet. At this moment, surging along the circulation paths of the Black Tiger art, it was fully awakened. An extremely hot current burst forth from his dantian, racing wildly through every limb and meridian. The power was staggeringly immense. A faint red mist seeped uncontrollably across Chun-Yi's skin. His system panel refreshed. Realm, body refining perfection. Skills, 6th generation instructional calisthenics perfection, basic hand-to-hand combat perfection, black tiger art perfection, black tiger palm perfection, black tiger step perfection. Staring at the panel, Chun-Yi froze for 2 seconds. Body refining perfection. Just like that, he had broken through? He had only watched a few video clips without practicing a single movement, yet his realm had shot straight from tempered body perfection to body refining perfection. This was utterly absurd. With 232 constitution points, he had long surpassed the physical strength required for body refining perfection. At 320 insight points, he could fully grasp any art after a single viewing, and all Kiblood circulation pathways had opened up. All prerequisites had been satisfied. For him to advance in realm, he had merely needed a matching martial art. Chun-Yi clenched his fist, feeling the surging Kiblood inside him. Nothing was the same as before. He could sense impurities in his blood being scoured clean over and over. The sense of clarity filled him with invigoration. His entire being was transforming from the inside out. Body refining perfection. Within the Luo Martial Hall, this represented the peak strength the Hallmaster had reached in his youth. Yet less than an hour had passed since Chun-Yi first stepped foot inside the Martial Hall. Chun-Yi slowly stood up. He swept his left hand casually through the air. A domineering gust of wind swept across the table, making teacups rattle. With a slight push of his feet, Black Tiger Step activated instinctively. His figure blurred on the spot, leaving a faint afterimage. Luo Yonghu, standing across the table, was completely dumbfounded. Seeing the layer of red-tinged flame wreathed around Chun-Yi, his jaw dropped open and his hands shook uncontrollably. You are at body refining perfection? Realization dawned on Luo Yonghu. Of course, this young man had already been a body refining realm warrior. That explained how he had sent Su Ji flying with one punch, and why the 3 senior martial instructors had been powerless to resist him. Ignoring him, Chun-Yi reigned in his aura. The red-tinged flames receded back into his body. He set the tablet down on the table, his gaze shifting to the desk drawer. He pulled it open casually. Stacked neatly inside were more than 10 piles of cash that had not yet been deposited in the bank. Without a word, Chun-Yi grabbed a handbag sitting beside the table and swept all the cash inside in a few quick motions. Holding the heavy bag, he glanced at Luo Yonghu. Paying him no further heed, he pulled open the office door and walked out. When disciples in the corridor saw him emerge, they all stepped back in alarm. A clear 2-meter-wide path opened up in the crowded hallway. No one dared meet his eyes. Only after Chun-Yi descended the stairs did the stifling atmosphere ease slightly. The sound of footsteps faded down the corridor. Luo Yonghu finally turned back, leaned against his chair, and let out a long breath. Less than 3 minutes after Chun-Yi left, the office door swung open. Su Ji walked at the front. His right arm was crudely bound with clothing, his face pale and cold sweat beading his forehead. Behind him came the 2 senior martial instructors. One had his left arm bent at an unnatural angle, held up in a sling. The other clutched his ribs, gasping in pain with every step. The 3 men entered the office, their expressions alike. Hallmaster, is he gone? Su Ji spoke first, his voice hoarse. Luo Yonghu nodded. Su Ji spotted the tablet screen still lit on the desk, and his expression shifted. What did he take? Luo Yonghu fell silent for a moment. The Black Tiger art, plus more than 100,000 in cash. The 3 men exchanged glances. Su Ji frowned, then quickly relaxed. That is all. Luo Yonghu said nothing. Gritting his teeth, Su Ji lowered his voice. The Black Tiger art is not your original creation. Many other martial halls across the city possess its first volume, and simplified editions can be bought on the open market. Though the later scroll is rarer, it is hardly exclusive. The martial instructor with the injured left arm chimed in. Larger martial halls also have the later scroll. I have heard mention of an even higher rank variant. The true explanation of the Black Tiger, I cannot quite recall the exact name. Gasping for breath, the second injured instructor added. Some major factions hold follow-up techniques that can cultivate all the way to the Blazing Beacon realm. In short, it is no Wonio Faken's secret art. The money can be earned back, Su Ji murmured. Letting him take it is not a total loss. Not a total loss. In front of dozens of onlookers, a young outsider had sent one of their men flying with a single blow. 3 senior martial instructors had all been gravely wounded. To cap it all off, he had robbed their core art in 100,000 yuan. If word spread, where would the Luo Martial Hall's dignity be? Luo Yonghu's expression darkened. Su Ji ventured a suggestion. Should we report this to the security patrol? Have them apprehend him. Report and be damned. Luo Yonghu slammed his fist on the table. The jolt aggravated his broken wrist, and he winced in agony. Report this, and let the entire Kunlun city know our martial hall was overwhelmed by a young brat in less than 10 minutes. By tomorrow, the whole city's martial arts circle will be laughing themselves sick. Who would sign up for classes at our hall after that? The three men shrank back, falling silent. Luo Yonghu took several deep breaths to calm his rage. Go to the hospital first. Treat your injuries. I will cover all expenses from the hall's public funds. Secure the best physicians available. The three acknowledged his order and turned to leave. Wait. Luo Yonghu called after them. His tone turned cold and menacing. Investigate him. Send several unfamiliar apprentices to tail him discreetly. Find out who this young man is, which street he lives on, details of his family, his background, and any connections he might have. I have run this martial hall for over 20 years. No one has ever humiliated me like this. This matter will not end here. Luo Yonghu's eyes turned icy. Once we have all the information, if necessary, pay a high price to hire Blazing Beacon Realm experts. I want to watch as every limb of his is broken inch by inch. I want him to kneel at the gates of the Luo Martial Hall and kowtow in apology. Down on the main floor of the Martial Hall, Chun-Yi stepped out of the elevator. Apprentices who had been chatting in small groups fell silent the moment they saw him, stepping aside to form a clear 2-meter-wide passage. He walked forward and pushed open the main entrance. Bright sunlight flooded in from outside, stinging his eyes. As soon as he crossed the threshold, Chun-Yi halted. At the bottom of the steps, two powerfully built men blocked his path, one on the left and one on the right. 5 days had passed. This was the first time Chun-Yi had come face-to-face with these two trackers. He had spotted them from more than 10 meters away in a hospital corridor before, but now they stood merely 3 or 4 steps apart. Every detail of their features laid bare. Both wore suits stretched tight over broad shoulders. Black undershirts peeked out at open collars, their muscles bulging against the fabric. The man on the left had a cropped buzz cut, high cheekbones and thin lips. The man on the right bore an old scar across his cheek, deep-set eye sockets and shoulders far broader than the average man. The moment Chun-Yi saw them, they saw him too. The buzz-cut man looked visibly stunned. They had not expected Chun-Yi to emerge from the martial hall so soon. He quickly grinned, revealing yellowed teeth stained by tobacco smoke. The scarred man smiled as well. The two advanced toward him at an unhurried pace, their posture relaxed as though greeting an acquaintance on the street. Young fellow. The buzz-cut man spoke in a rough voice, placing his right hand directly on Chun-Yi's right shoulder. The scarred man said nothing. He closed in from the other side and pressed his left hand down upon Chun-Yi's left shoulder. Both palms bore down with gentle pressure, far weaker than Su Ji's earlier shove. Noting this, Chun-Yi felt a flicker of confusion, though none showed on his face. The buzz-cut man leaned close to his ear, breathing the acrid stench of cheap tobacco. Holed up in the hospital for 5 days, and the first thing you do once out is head straight for a martial hall. What? Hoping to become a warrior to escape us? He chuckled, his tone thick with scorn. Come along. Let us go somewhere quiet and have a little talk. Chun-Yi met his gaze. Very well. He nodded. The two men exchanged glances, surprised by his ready compliance. To their minds, this was submission. Contempt deepened in the buzz-cut man's eyes as he increased pressure on Chun-Yi's shoulder and pushed him forward. They half-guided, half-escorted Chun-Yi along the street outside the martial hall. From behind, it looked as though two large men were marching a young man away. Several apprentices smoking near the entrance saw the scene, but quickly looked away, none daring to intervene. 50 meters along the road, the buzz-cut man turned into a narrow side alley. Sunlight seldom reached this passage. Old residential building walls flanked both sides, their cement surfaces stained and peeling. Moss grew along the baseboards. Alongside discarded cardboard boxes, stinking plastic buckets and piles of uncollected rubbish. Light faded further as they walked deeper. At the alley's end stood a 3-meter-high red brick dead-end wall. The buzz-cut man shoved Chun-Yi hard against the wall. The scarred man stepped back to block the alley mouth, his hand drifting toward his lower back to cut off any escape. The buzz-cut man stood directly before Chun-Yi, sealing the only remaining route. Silence settled over the narrow space. Chun-Yi steadied himself and brushed dust from his shoulders. He spoke at last. Who are you? The buzz-cut man tilted his head and studied him without answering. Chun-Yi pressed on. Why have you been following me? For 5 days. From the hospital all the way to this place. His voice remained level. Did you have a hand in what happened to my parents? The smile faded slowly from the buzz-cut man's face. He shot a glance at the scarred man, who drew a short dagger from behind his waist. The buzz-cut man turned back toward Chun-Yi and pulled a triangular military spike from his own waist, its blade glinting sharp. You ask far too many questions. He sneered. Go ask Yama in the afterlife. The instant his words ended, both men struck. The triangular military spike lunged straight for Chun-Yi's abdomen. At the same time, the scarred man's dagger stabbed toward his flank to seal off evasion. They moved with well-practiced coordination. This was clearly not their first time carrying out such an act. Every strike was a killing blow, fast, precise, and merciless. Had this happened 5 days earlier, even if Chun-Yi survived, he would have been run through. But everything was different now. Chun-Yi stepped half a pace backward. The spike sliced past the front of his shirt, and the dagger missed entirely, not so much as scratching his skin. The next moment, every muscle in his body tensed. He stopped holding back. Boom. His cheek blood erupted. Faint red, tinged flame flickered across his skin, enveloping his whole body as though burning. The cold, dank air of the alley was instantly dispelled. The buzz-cut man's cruel grin froze on his face. Chun-Yi shaped his right hand into a palm, unleashing Black Tiger Palm. He twisted his torso and drove his right arm forward. He channeled the terrifying chi, blood of the perfection, rank Black Tiger art into the strike, striking hard toward the buzz-cut man's chest. Chun-Yi held nothing back. Even as his palm moved, he had mapped out 3 counters for if his foe blocked, retreated, or dodged sideways. Thud! A dull, sickening sound echoed. Yet the outcome caught Chun-Yi completely off guard. The buzz-cut man made no attempt to block or evade. He barely reacted at all. He remained in the forward, leaning posture from his stab, his right foot still planted where it was. First came the force of the palm wind. The suit jacket over his chest caved violently inward. The impact felt strange to Chun-Yi's palm. There was almost no resistance. None at all. It was nothing like the solid collision he had felt hitting Su Ji, nor the seasoned counter vibration of Luo Yonghu. It was as though striking soft, yielding flesh. The overwhelming chi, blood power surged unimpeded into the buzz-cut man's torso. A succession of cracking sounds rang out as bones shattered. His chest caved inward drastically. Several ribs pierced outward through his back, tearing through his suit. In the next instant, the sheer force lifted the buzz-cut man clean off the ground. Bang! His body slammed hard into the brick wall at the end of the alley. Cracks spiderwebbed across the masonry and fragments showered down. He slid down to the ground. A massive indent marred his chest. Blood mixed with fragments of internal organs poured from his mouth. He did not even groan. His head lolled to one side, eyes open but pupils already lifeless. He was dead on the spot. Utter silence fell across the alley. Chun-Yi stood frozen in his striking stance. He glanced down at his right palm still wreathed in red, tinged fire, then looked at the corpse slumped against the wall. Truly? That was all there was to it. Chun-Yi's mind raced, and understanding dawned. These 2 men who had forced him to lie low inside the hospital for 5 days, whom he had feared so deeply, were no secret powerhouses at all. They had not even reached body, refining realm. At best they were late, stage-tempered body warriors, marginally stronger than Jiang Su. Jiang Su was the junior martial instructor from the Luo Martial Hall. That was their true limit. He had let fear get the better of him. Still, it was understandable. After his sister awakened her god-tier talent and vanished, his parents had been severely injured in an assault supposedly carried out by a drunken man. The security patrol had closed the case in a perfunctory fashion. Given this chain of disasters, Chun-Yi had naturally assumed his enemies were backed by figures of immense influence. If that were true, the men sent to track him down ought to have been elite assassins, possibly even warriors above the second realm of body, refining. To expose himself carelessly would have meant certain death. So he had laid low. Only once he mastered the Black Tiger art and broke through to body, refining perfection, with a constitution score above 200, had he dared confront them. Caution had been reasonable. Never take risks without certainty. That was how one survived. Chun-Yi pushed aside his moment of self-mockery and shifted his gaze to the scarred man. During those few seconds of reflection, the scarred man beside him had descended into terror. Clang! His dagger clattered onto the ground. He stared at his companion's mangled corpse, then at the red, tinged flame still flickering over Chun-Yi's arms. You are a warrior? He stumbled backward until his back hit the wall, trapped with nowhere left to run. Chi, blood externalization, body, refining realm, second, realm body, refining perfection. His voice cracked with horror. How can this be? You are only 19 years old. The intelligence given to them had described Chun-Yi as an ordinary student with no connections and no notable talent. No ordinary university student could send a late, stage-tempered, body warrior flying with a single palm. Their briefing had been catastrophically wrong. The scarred man's knees buckled, and he dropped to the ground. Chun-Yi strode forward until he stood over the kneeling man. His gaze, cold after taking a life, bore down on him. Now I will ask again. Who sent you? Where do you come from? Every sound carried clearly within the confined alley. The scarred man's Adam's apple bobbed repeatedly. His eyes darted toward the broken corpse beside him. He trembled violently, yet his mouth opened and shut without producing a single word. Was he stalling for time, clinging to faint hope, or plotting a last-ditch counterattack? Chun-Yi had no patience left. He lifted his right leg and stamped down hard onto the scarred man's left knee. Crunch! The sharp crack of breaking bone echoed loudly in the narrow passage. Ah! The scarred man toppled sideways, clutching his shattered knee and thrashing on the filthy, puddled ground. His screams bounced off the surrounding walls. Chun-Yi's expression remained unchanged. He shifted the tip of his shoe to rest against the scarred man's right knee. The next blow will shatter your right knee. If you still refuse to speak, I will move on to your spine. Sweat streamed down the scarred man's face. Snot and tears streaked his features. Fear had fully seized him. This young man who looked like a student struck more ruthlessly than men who made their living doing dirty deeds. I will talk. I will talk. Stop, please stop. Chun-Yi lifted his foot away from the wound. Your name? Zhao Deshang. Gasping in pain, the scarred man gestured toward the corpse. His name was Lu Tao. We were on the same team. Chun-Yi looked down at him. Which team? Shaking uncontrollably, Zhao Deshang answered. Yufeng Group, Sanitation Division, Wolf, Grade Team, A-Team. Yufeng Group. Many corporations in Kunlun City operated under legitimate, sounding facades while engaging in under-the-table activities. Tell me everything. No longer daring to hold anything back, Zhao Deshang spoke in a rushed stream. On paper, it is a legitimate trading corporation based in the Central District. Privately, they employ warriors to carry out illegal work for wealthy and powerful clients. Chun-Yi pressed closer, bringing the sole of his shoe down beside Zhao Deshang's broken leg and applying light pressure. Were you the ones who hurt my parents? Zhao Deshang howled in agony and scrabbled desperately at Chun-Yi's shoe, which did not shift an inch. Yes, our team did it. But I was not there. I swear I was not. He cried out. Captain Mu-Yi gave the order. Ma and Hei were the ones who carried out the assault. Originally, they intended to intercept your parents out on the road and kill them, then dispose of their bodies in the wilderness. A security patrol vehicle happened to pass by before they could finish the job, so the captain ordered them to pretend to be drunken warriors, maim your parents, and retreat. Later, they arranged for scapegoats to turn themselves into the security patrol and bury the whole incident. Chun-Yi eased the pressure of his foot. Your orders were only to maim them? Zhao Deshang's lips turned pale. That was the revised mission brief. A heavy silence hung in the narrow lane. All the pieces fell into place. There had been no random drunk, no accident at all. His sister had disappeared. When his parents tried to uncover clues, they had run afoul of this organization and nearly lost their lives. Chun-Yi held out his right hand. Hand over your phone. Zhao Deshang stared blankly for a moment. At a sharp look from Chun-Yi, he fished a mud-smeared smartphone out of his trousers and held it out with trembling hands. The screen was locked. Chun-Yi held the phone before his face. Unlock it. Zhao Deshang pressed his thumb against the sensor, then stammered out his passcode. The screen lit up. Chun-Yi opened his messaging app. The top pinned contact was labeled Captain Mu. None of the chat history had been deleted. Chun-Yi scrolled all the way to the earliest messages and read through them. Captain Mu, is the target still in hospital? Zhao Deshang, yes. He has not left for 3 days. Captain Mu, useless. Too late, stage-tempered. Body warriors cannot handle a single student. Lu Tao, too many hospital staff around. Hard to strike. Captain Mu, find an opening. Delays will draw censure from higher-ups. Chun-Yi kept scrolling upward. Captain Mu, has the boy left the hospital yet? Zhao Deshang, not yet. The intensive care ward is crowded with doctors and nurses. Difficult to act openly. Captain, should we wait until he returns to his rental accommodation? Captain Mu, we cannot wait any longer. Superiors are pressing hard. Strike the moment he steps outside the hospital gates. After reading the older threads, Chun-Yi scrolled back down to the latest exchange. Captain Mu, do not wait for him to leave. Carry out the operation inside the hospital. Eliminate Chun-Yi. Remove the 2 in intensive care as well. Leave no survivors. Wipe out the whole family. Chun-Yi stared at the few lines of text. Intensive care unit. His parents, lying unconscious. They would not even spare the people in the hospital beds. Chun-Yi's fingers tightened abruptly. Crack. A harsh, brittle sound came from the phone casing. The screen split open. Crushed in his palm, the device warped, crumpling into a lump of twisted scrap metal. Zhao Deshang gaped at the mangled wreckage, his mouth falling open before snapping shut again. If that strength landed on his neck, his head would be torn clean off. Chun Yi turned to look at him. Yufeng Group. Tell me its power and background. Zhao Deshang was in so much pain his mind was reeling. At the question, he answered instinctively. The Sanitation Division is the group's unit that handles all the dirty work. Tan Xinghong is the division director, late, 4th realm. There is also a deputy director, mid 4th realm. Beneath them are 3 tiers of squads, Dragon, Tiger, and Wolf. 2 Dragon rank squads. Every member is 3rd realm, Blaze, Realm Masters, the hidden trump card that keeps Yufeng Group firmly rooted in Kunlun City. 10 Tiger rank squads, all 2nd realm 100 forging experts. 50 Wolf rank squads, all 1st realm fighters, 5 men to each squad. At this point he hastened to add another line. Squad 18 is only Wolf rank. 5 of us, all 1st realm body, refining. We're just the low-level errand boys. Man, you're asking the wrong person. I don't even know who issued the mission. Chun Yi processed the information in his head. Blaze Realm, the 3rd realm of physical martial power. His constitution now stood at 232 points. With max level Black Tiger skill, he could overpower ordinary 100 forging opponents with ease. Whether he could match a Blaze Realm fighter would only be known through actual combat. Who gave this order? Zhao Deshang shook his head frantically. I don't know. I swear I truly don't. We're just grunts doing the job for pay. Orders filter down layer by layer to our squad captain. Only squad captains or senior division staff know the real client. Chen Yi asked, why target my family? Zhao Deshang's face twisted with agony. I have no idea. Chen Yi said nothing. Panic surged over Zhao Deshang. I really don't know. All we got was an order. Keep an eye on you. Find a chance to kill you. Same for your parents. No reason was given. The squad captain might know something. Further up, the division director definitely knows. But people like us dare not ask. Ask one extra question, and the next day someone else would come to dispose of us. Chen Yi stood up. The picture was clear enough. Zhao Deshang and Lu Tao were merely small, time lackeys. Yufeng Group was the colossal beast hidden beneath the surface. His sister's disappearance, the assault on his parents, the attempt to finish them off in hospital. These 3 incidents linked together were far more than a personal vendetta. The trail had finally revealed a fragment of itself. Seeing Chun Yi rise, Zhao Deshang fell into total panic. I've told you everything. Dragging his broken leg, he crawled forward, reaching to grab the hem of Chun Yi's trousers. I can lead you there. I can give testimony. I have a wife and kids at home. I'll leave Kunlun City right now and never come back. Spare my life. I'll be your dog. Chun Yi looked down at him. When you broke my parents' bones, did you ever think about sparing them? Zhao Deshang's features froze. Chun Yi pressed on. When you chatted about how to sneak into the ward and pull their life support tubes, did you think about showing mercy to my family? Zhao Deshang's lips trembled. Man, when you took this assignment, did you understand that if I died, my parents would also be killed? Reading the cold fury in Chun Yi's eyes, Zhao Deshang realized he would not survive. His pleading expression curdled into venomous hatred. He snatched a brass knuckle spear from his waist and threw himself at Chun Yi. He drove forward with the strength of his waist. Then we'll die together. Chun Yi did not even dodge. He lifted his right hand. A palm strike crashed down. Boom. The full force of his 200+ constitution points slammed into Zhao Deshang's skull. Zhao Deshang did not even groan. His cervical vertebra snapped instantly. His body toppled over, the back of his head slamming hard against the concrete at the base of the wall. He convulsed twice and went completely still. A pool of blood spread across the wall, side ground. Chun Yi pulled back his hand and did not glance at the corpse again. These people had wanted him dead and wanted to murder his parents lying in intensive care. Spare them? That would have been utter foolishness. Chun Yi turned and walked over to Lu Tao's body. He bent down. He rummaged inside Lu Tao's suit jacket pocket and soon pulled out a second mobile phone. Blood smudged the screen. The fingerprint lock was still active. Chun Yi took Lu Tao's still, warm thumb and pressed it against the sensor below the screen. The screen lit up. Inside the Fishat app, Mu Yi's contact was present. Chun Yi opened the chat box and sent a message pretending to be Lu Tao. Lu Tao, Captain, mission complete. The kid has been dealt with. The reply came almost instantly. Captain Mu, is Chun Yi dead? Lu Tao dead. Captain Mu, what about Zhao Deshang? Lu Tao, right here beside me. Captain Mu, have you disposed of the bodies? Chun Yi's eyes swept toward the corner of the alley. Lu Tao, working on it now. Captain Mu, leave no loose ends. The security patrol has been keeping close watch these days. Do not stir up trouble. Lu Tao, everything is clean. It happened in this abandoned construction alley. No witnesses. There was a pause of more than 10 seconds on the other end. Captain Mu, what about the two in the hospital? Chen Yi's gaze turned icy, and he kept typing as Lu Tao. Lu Tao. Both handled. Captain Mu, good. Right afterwards, a location pin was sent over. It pointed to a budget hotel. Captain Mu, Jinyuan Hotel, room 602. Come here to meet up. Chen Yi's eyes narrowed. Jinyuan Hotel, room 602. Holding Lu Tao's phone, he sent a reply. Lu Tao, received. On my way. The response came quickly. Captain Mu, hurry. Higher, ups are waiting for our report. Reading the words higher, ups, Chen Yi's eyes narrowed. There were people above, even Mui. That suited him perfectly. He would track them layer by layer. Sooner or later, he would find the mastermind behind everything. He glanced once more at the two corpses on the ground. Today's reckoning would begin with Mu Yi, captain of Wolf, rank Squad 18 of the Sanitation Division. He stepped out of the narrow alley. The roar of city, street traffic washed over him. Pedestrians passed to and fro. No one knew two men had just died in that alley. Chen Yi raised his hand and hailed a taxi. The driver leaned out the window. Where to? Chen Yi pulled open the rear door and climbed inside. His voice was calm. Jinyuan Hotel. Inside the taxi, Chen Yi sat in the back seat. His half-reflected face showed on the window glass. Street scenery streamed rapidly backward. He glanced down at his right hand. Though he had wiped his palm clean, traces of blood lingered between his fingers. Killing for the first time had brought a moment of physical discomfort. His chest had tightened and his stomach had churned. And then it had passed. Perhaps his system bonus had amplified his mental resilience. Beyond that, his sister was missing. His parents lay gravely injured. The security patrol had brushed the whole incident off as an accidental altercation. Zhao Desheng and Lu Tao had intended to finish the job in the hospital. At this point, Chen Yi could no longer regard these men as ordinary human beings. They wanted his whole family dead. He had struck first to protect the people he loved. That was the plain truth of it. Half an hour later, they arrived at Jinyuan Hotel. It was a modest 7-story old-style building with great exterior walls. A faded illuminated sign hung above the entrance. One of the two light boxes was broken. Stickers advertising hourly rate rooms were plastered on the glass doors. We're here, the driver said, glancing back. Chen Yi scanned the code to pay and stepped out of the vehicle. The driver took his payment, turned the wheel, and drove away without a second glance. Chen Yi walked into the hotel. The young receptionist slouched in her chair watching short-form videos, volume blaring with shrill bursts of laughter. She looked up at the sound of footsteps. Checking in. Chen Yi ignored her and headed straight for the elevator. Seeing no response, the girl lost interest and returned to her phone. In small hotels like this, guests came and went, and nobody bothered meddling in other people's business. The elevator ascended. 6th floor. Chen Yi halted outside room 602. Muffled voices drifted from within. Zhao Desheng and Lu Tao, those two are really dragging their feet. A single student, and they've taken 5 days to finish him. If word gets out, Wolf, rank Squad 18 will be a laughingstock. Forget reputation. It'll be good enough if they get the mission done on time. Inside the room, cigarette smoke mixed with takeaway food odors. Curtains were drawn shut, leaving only one lamp switched on. Cigarette packs, beer cans, and leftover food containers littered the coffee table. Mu Yi sat on the sofa, holding a mobile phone. He was 27 or 28, with close, cropped hair and a gaunt face marked by an old scar at the outer corner of one eye. He was captain of Yufeng Group Sanitation Division's Wolf, rank Squad 18, at the peak of body, refining realm, a formidable fighter among Wolf rank units. 2 other men occupied the room. A young blonde-haired man in a floral shirt and slippers sat on the bed cracking sunflower seed shells. His nickname was Old Ma, real name Wang Feng. Another broad-shouldered, close-shaved man with tattoos covering his forearms stood by the window smoking. He went by Blackie, real name Zhou Guang. Both were members of Wolf, rank Squad 18. Wang Feng spat seed shells into an ashtray. Captain, do you think Zhao Desheng lost his nerve? Hanging around the hospital entrance for days must have worn him out. Blackie exhaled smoke and swore jokingly. He was always spineless. Good for intimidating people, but he'd be the first to run when things turn rough. Wang Feng chuckled. Lu Tao isn't much better. Put the two together, no wonder they've been dragging their feet. Mu Yi shot them a glance. Enough chatter. Wang Feng shrugged. All right, you're the captain. Mu Yi returned his gaze to his phone. Lu Tao's recent message had reported the target eliminated. Logically, the assignment ought to be wrapped up, yet unease gnawed at him. Chun-Yi had hidden in the hospital for 5 days, and now he was supposedly dead the very day he stepped outside? It felt far too convenient. Blackie blew out another cloud of smoke. Captain, what's the big rush from higher-ups? The kids' parents are stuck in intensive care. They can't go anywhere. Mu-Yi looked over at him. Do you really want to know? Blackie paused, then laughed nervously. Nah, just asking out of curiosity. In their line of work, knowing too much was dangerous. Silence settled over the room for several seconds. Then came a knock. Thud, thud, thud. 3 slow, deliberate raps. The room fell quiet. Mu-Yi set his phone face down on the table. Go check. Wang Feng stood, slippers padding across the carpet, grumbling under his breath. Must be Zhao Deshang and the other guy, coming back and putting on such formal manners. He reached the door, but did not unlock it immediately. He leaned forward and peered through the peephole. The next instant he froze. The person outside was neither Zhao Deshang nor Lu Tao. It was a young man, roughly 19 years old, plainly dressed, his face devoid of any obvious emotion. Wang Feng twisted his head toward the room interior. Captain, it's not Zhao Bang. The door burst inward from outside. The lock shattered, the door frame splintered. The door panel slammed full force into Wang Feng. He flew backward, crashing hard into the TV cabinet. Water bottles, remote controls, and cigarette packs scattered across the floor. Wang Feng lay crumpled beside the cabinet, unable to get back to his feet. Mu-Yi and Blackie both jumped to their feet. They recognized Chun-Yi instantly. You're alive. Where are Zhao Deshang and Lu Tao? Chun-Yi said nothing. He walked impassively into the room. Still pinned by the blow, Wang Feng lay on the floor and snarled. Damn it, you. Chun-Yi shifted his feet, activating Black Tiger Step. In a few strides he reached the TV cabinet and brought his foot stomping down. Crack. Wang Feng's body jerked violently. His cervical vertebra snapped. He moved no more. Black's face paled. Mu-Yi stared at Chun-Yi, his features dark, his voice tight with tension. Do you have any idea who we work for? Chun-Yi kept advancing. Blackie drew a short dagger, pointing its tip toward him. Stop right there. Mu-Yi spoke next. We belong to Yufeng Group's sanitation division. To attack us is to declare war on Yufeng Group itself. Chun-Yi did not halt. Blackie gritted his teeth, pushed off the floor and lunged, driving the dagger straight for Chun-Yi's throat. The room was cramped. Beds, coffee table, and sofa restricted movement. Blackie's knife strike was fast and vicious, yet Chun-Yi moved even faster. Black Tiger Step carried him, closing the distance before Blackie could retract his blade. Chun-Yi raised an open palm. Reddish, gold martial, flame welled up from his palm, spreading along his forearms until it shrouded his whole body. The temperature inside the room shot upward. Black's eyelids fluttered in alarm. 100, forging. He never finished the sentence. The Black Tiger palm slammed into his chest. Boom. Black's back slammed against the wall, shaking the plasterwork. The dagger clattered to the ground. His chest caved inward, blood gushing from his mouth. He stared down at his own body, then back at Chun-Yi, eyes wide with terror. Consciousness faded, and he died. Witnessing this, Mu-Yi's face turned ashen. He stared at the flame wrapping Chun-Yi's frame, overcome with shock. This was not early, stage 100 forging, nor mid, stage 100 forging. This was 100 forging peak. Mu-Yi's throat went dry. His voice held disbelief. 100 forging peak. The words had barely left his mouth when Chun-Yi closed to within 3 meters. Mu-Yi instinctively stepped backward, his right foot catching against the edge of the sofa. Despair rose in his chest as he scanned his surroundings. The exit lay behind Chun-Yi. The window opened 6 stories above the ground. Jumping would leave him crippled at best. There was nowhere to run. He would have to fight. Panic flickered across Mu-Yi's face for only half a second before brutal resolve took its place. To serve as captain under Yufeng Group's sanitation division demanded more than ordinary grit. Even outmatched, he would fight for his life. Just because you've reached 100 forging peak, you think you can kill Yufeng's men? Mu-Yi roared. He sank his arms, forcing his internal physical energy to surge. He stood at the peak of body, refining realm, only one small step away from 100 forging. His right fist shot straight for Chun-Yi's face. Concealed close to his ribs in his left hand was a thin steel needle. The punch was a feint. The needle was his true killing trick. In his trade, any method was acceptable so long as it brought death. Chun-Yi's glance took in the treacherous ploy. He neither evaded the fist nor paid heed to the needle. He simply took one powerful step forward and swept his leg horizontally. The steel needle had only advanced half an inch when Chun-Yi's leg connected. Boom. Crack. Mu Yi's left leg fractured instantly. Jagged bone pierced through his trouser, leg, and blood flowed freely. Before he could collapse, Chen Yi's second kick arrived. His right leg shattered as well. Deprived of support, Mu Yi crashed sideways, his shoulders smashing into the glass-topped coffee table. Glass shattered everywhere. Ah! A scream tore through the room. Mu Yi writhed in agony and tried to push himself up off the ground. Chen Yi stood over him and planted one foot on the side of his head. Half of Mu Yi's face was pressed against shards of broken glass. A gash split his forehead, blood streaming down his cheeks. Chen Yi looked down at him. You are Mu Yi. It was not a question. In the taxi, he had gone through Lu Tao's phone. This was Wolf, rank squad 18's captain. Mu Yi gasped for breath, his voice muffled against the floor tiles. Chen Yi, how can you possibly be a martial artist? 100 forging peak at that? Your file said you were nothing more than an ordinary university student. Chen Yi increased the pressure under his foot. Mu Yi's face ground harder against the floor. Blood welled inside his mouth from his gritted teeth. Do you realize what you have done? Mu Yi snarled. I work for Yufeng Group's sanitation division. Kill us, and there will be nowhere in Kunlun City you can hide. Chen Yi pressed a little harder. Crack. One of Mu Yi's teeth crumbled. Agony racked his body. Answer the questions I ask, Chen Yi said evenly, or I will crush your skull under my foot. Mu Yi clamped his jaws shut. The room's air conditioner hummed from its vent. Two corpses lay on the floor, glass shards littered every surface, and blood seeped slowly into the carpet. At last Mu Yi understood. The threat was no bluff. Chen Yi asked, You know who I am? Mu Yi said nothing. Chen Yi bore down with his foot. Veins bulged on Mu Yi's forehead, and a pained groan was forced out of his throat. Yes. Were my parents assaulted on your orders? Again Mu Yi fell silent. Chen Yi shifted his weight to press down on his broken lower leg. Before he even applied full force, Mu Yi screamed. Yes, yes, our squad carried it out. He trembled in pain. But it was a group-issued assignment. We only followed orders. This is not our fault. Chen Yi studied him. Who struck them? Wang Feng and Blackie. They beat your parents into critical condition, Mu Yi rushed to explain. Zhao Desheng and Lu Tao arrived afterwards to wrap things up. Once the security patrol showed up, we sent Zhao Desheng and Lu Tao to finish the job inside the hospital. Chen Yi's gaze swept over the bodies of Wang Feng and Blackie. The men who had personally harmed his parents were already dead. Why was this done? Mu Yi drew ragged breaths. Orders came from above. Who is above you? Tan Xinghong, the sanitation division director. What is his strength level? Late, 4th realm, smoke, beacon realm. Mu Yi spoke rapidly, terrified of further pain. He runs the entire sanitation division. All dragon, tiger and wolf squads answer to him. 2 dragon, rank squads, all 3rd, realm blaze, realm fighters. 10 tiger, rank squads of 2nd, realm 100, forging warriors. 50 wolf, rank squads made up of 1st, realm personnel. This matched everything Zhao Desheng had told him. Chen Yi pressed on. What do you know about my sister's disappearance? I know nothing. Chen Yi shifted his toe. I truly don't. Mu Yi shouted in panic. Cases like your sister would never be delegated to a wolf rank squad. Our orders were only to eliminate you and your parents. What about the evidence my parents found? It was never in my possession. Where is it? I have no idea. Mu Yi's voice grew tight. They were heading for the security patrol office. Higher ups gave orders to stop them before they got there. The evidence must have been seized by people far above my rank. I am not authorized to see it. Chen Yi stared at him. Cold sweat soaked Mu Yi's back. I am telling you the truth. Who stands above Tan Xinghong? I don't know. Mu Yi spat a mouthful of blood-tinged saliva. Chen Yi did not press further. In such a rigidly hierarchized organization, intelligence flowed strictly downwards. He asked a few more follow-up questions. Yufeng Group's main headquarters stood in the city central district. Tan Xinghong spent most of his time inside the group tower. Dragon, rank squads rarely deployed, reserved for dealing with threats of 3rd realm power or higher. No deeper information was available. For all his status as a wolf, rank captain, Mu Yi remained low, ranking within the sanitation division. When the questioning ended, Chen Yi lifted his foot. Mu Yi drew a shaky gasp of relief. Blood, streaked and battered. He lifted his head and tried to bargain. I've told you everything. Spare me. I can dig up information for you. I have contacts inside the division who can pass intelligence. I can frame other factions for Zhao Desheng and Lu Tao's deaths. I can cover up everything that happened in this hotel room. Chen Yi, you are only 1900. Forging Peak is an immensely valuable talent. Yufeng might even recruit you. You do not have to throw your life away for ordinary people. Ordinary people, Chun Yi repeated flatly. Mu Yi's lips twitched. Instantly, he regretted those words. He hurried to correct himself. What I meant was, Chun Yi's eyes turned icy. His right foot crashed down toward Mu Yi's head. A heavy thud echoed. Red and gray matter splattered across nearby surfaces. Only then did Chun Yi speak quietly. They are my parents. He knelt down and retrieved Mu Yi's mobile phone. Using Mu Yi's fingers, he unlocked the screen. The contact list held only entries marked with code, names. One was labeled Superior 3. Most chat history records had been erased, leaving only mission code, names, and timestamps. But the most recent messages survived. They contained references to the hospital, to Chun Yi, and the phrase, wipe everything clean. Subordinates occasionally addressed the contact as Director Tan. This confirmed that the division director Mu Yi had spoken of was Tan Xinghong. He slipped the phone into his pocket and surveyed the room. Zhao Desheng, Lu Tao, Wang Feng, Zhou Guang, Mu Yi. Every person directly responsible for harming his parents lay dead. But the affair was far from finished. The true mastermind was still alive. Tan Xinghong lived. Yufeng Group stood untouched. Chun Yi pulled open the door and stepped out into the corridor. The sixth-floor hallway was empty. The elevator arrived with empty cabin. He walked inside and pressed the button for the ground floor. His reflection stared back from the polished metal wall. 19 years old. He still looked like a student. Yet within half a day he had fought through the Luo Martial Arts Hall and killed 5 men belonging to Yufeng Group. Once he had been blind to how ugly this world could be. Now there was no room for hesitation. The elevator reached the first floor. The young receptionist was still absorbed in short-form videos, never lifting her head. Outside the hotel, Chun Yi gazed toward the city center. The fleeting satisfaction of exacting revenge did not last long. He knew full well that Mu Yi was merely a small-time pawn. Tan Xinghong, late, stage Realm 4. With his current strength, he could crush Realm 2 opponents, faced uncertain odds against Realm 3, and would be courting death against Realm 4. He must not act recklessly. Revenge was one thing. Blind recklessness was another. What he needed most right now was power. He sat down at a random spot. Chun Yi needed to think through what came next. First, his parents lay in the intensive care unit, dependent on medical equipment and doctors. Transferring them would be extremely difficult. They relied on ventilators and could not withstand the strain of travel. Moreover, now that he had wiped out Wolf, Grade Team 18, Yufeng Group might not grasp what had happened immediately. Even once they caught on, they would first have to investigate how Mu Yi and his men had died. There was a window of opportunity. So long as Chun Yi stayed away from the hospital and did not draw trouble to it, the hospital would remain safe for the time being. His parents would have to stay where they were. Second, his younger sister had vanished right after awakening a god, ranked star, cultivation talent. The whole affair smelled fishy from the very start. His parents had gotten hold of clues and then suffered harm, which meant whatever they had uncovered had struck a nerve with certain parties. Yufeng Group had carried out the silencing, forming a clear trail to follow. Digging upward through Tan Xinghong would surely unearth more truths. Naturally, his sister's former school also required investigation. Someone there must know where she had awakened her talent and who had taken her away. Third, power. This was the highest priority. What good would uncovering the truth do without strength? A foe like Tan Xinghong, a late, stage Realm 4 warrior, could appear out of nowhere. Who could say whether even stronger individuals served Yufeng Group? What other forces might be tangled up in deeper layers of this conspiracy? Chun Yi did not know. Yet his current 100 forging perfection state was far from sufficient. He had to keep advancing his martial arts cultivation. Realm 3, Realm 4, Realm 5, and beyond. With that thought, Chun Yi pulled out his phone and opened a search page, typing in Kunlun City Chi, Blood Martial Arts. He knew search records could expose him, but the risk of leaving traces no longer mattered. Yufeng Group would hunt him down sooner or later. What he fought for was time. The top results were all advertisements. Children's martial arts introductory courses. College entrance exam martial arts crash classes. 1 on 1 Chi blood private tutoring. Chun Yi scrolled further down. Most entries were martial arts halls. Ever since Chi blood martial arts had fallen from prominence, martial arts halls had become commercial businesses. They sold membership cards, taught basic stance work, and peddled courses and medicinal bath sachets. Luoshi Martial Arts Hall operated exactly like this. The most formidable local establishment was Tianhong Martial Arts Hall, Kunlun City's largest chain of martial arts halls, with branches in every district. Rumor held its grand hall master was a Realm 5 blood pillar warrior, a well-known figure within the old-school martial arts circles. Such a place surely possessed advanced cultivation techniques. Yet it also carried great risks. Crowded premises, countless eyes, endless complications. Word of his incident at Luoshi Martial Arts Hall might well have spread. Showing up at Tianhong would make him an obvious target. Martial arts halls were not a viable option. They prioritized profit and reputation. Gaining access to their true core techniques would demand signing binding contracts or placing himself at the hall's beck and call. Chen Yi possessed no time for such commitments. He kept scrolling. Beyond martial arts halls lay martial arts clans. Centuries, even millennia, old clans held profound legacies and complete sets of techniques. Yet clans were fiercely clannish. As an outsider, he would never be granted their core cultivation knowledge simply by showing up. Last came sections. The true roots of Qi, blood martial arts resided largely within the sects. Passing down teachings for generations, they enforced strict admission standards and numerous rules. Though the rise of star cultivation had overshadowed old-school Qi, blood martial arts, many sects kept low profiles, shunning fame and contention. Low profile did not mean bereft of genuine knowledge. Within Qi, blood martial arts circles, they retained the most complete inheritance systems. Chen Yi typed in new search terms: Kunlun City Old School Martial Arts Sect, Kunlun City Qi, Blood Sect, Kunlun City Martial Arts Heritage. More than 10 minutes later, a shabby old webpage popped up. Hunman Sect. The page was crude, its images blurry, its description sparse. Hunman Sect, an old-school martial arts sect in Kunlun City, located on Qingqiong Mountain outside the city. It had earned renown across Tianjin Prefecture 100 years ago. Now it operated under partial mountain seclusion, accepting very few disciples and remaining closed to tourists. One line of the introduction caught Chen Yi's eye. The sect preserves complete inheritance with an extremely high upper limit. At the bottom sat its address: northern foot of Qingqiong Mountain, more than 40 kilometers from the urban area. Chen Yi stared at the name. The scant online information suggested it did not profit from recruiting paying students. Martial arts factions unmotivated by profit most likely held genuine knowledge. The formal apprenticeship process would take too long. He had no spare time to go through all the customary formalities. He did not even need to be formally accepted as a disciple. Chen Yi only needed to see the techniques once. Even outer sect demonstration practices or fragmentary inscriptions carved on stone steels would suffice, so long as they contained realm 3 level energy circulation methods. Given his current power of comprehension, a single glance would let him cultivate them to perfection. If that failed, he would wait for tomorrow's attribute doubling. Chen Yi put his phone away. His target was set: Hunman Sect. He stood and walked to the roadside to hail a ride. A taxi pulled over. The driver rolled down the window. Where to? Chen Yi opened the rear door and climbed inside. Northern foot of Qingqiong Mountain. The driver glanced back at him. That's far, out of the city, and you have to drive mountain roads. I won't get many fares on the return trip. His implication was plain. He expected extra pay. Drive. Seeing Chen Yi meant business, the driver nodded and started the vehicle. The taxi merged into traffic and headed out of the city. Chen Yi leaned back in the rear seat and closed his eyes to rest. He no longer dwelt on Mu Yi's corpse, nor on how Yufeng Group would conduct its investigation. Every moment now had to count. Once noon struck tomorrow, his attributes would double again. If he obtained higher level cultivation techniques before then, he could keep powering forward. Realm 3 beacon, fire. Realm 4 beacon, smoke. Meanwhile, back at the hotel, the front desk attendant received a complaint from the 6th floor about a strange odor. Assuming a guest had spilled something, she summoned a cleaner upstairs. Upon reaching the 6th floor, the cleaner caught a whiff of blood the moment she neared room 602. Its broken door hung askew within the doorframe. One glance inside sent her collapsing to the floor in terror. Screams echoed from the 6th floor. 10 minutes later, peace patrol officers arrived. Several patrol vehicles pulled up before the hotel, and police tape was strung up. Hotel guests were escorted downstairs one by one for questioning. The young front desk attendant sat pale-faced, clutching her phone, barely able to speak. I don't know. He got off the elevator and left right away. I truly didn't get a clear look. A crowd of onlookers gathered outside the hotel. Some filmed videos, others murmured among themselves. What's going on? Is someone dead? Word says it happened on the 6th floor, multiple fatalities. Is that true? This hotel has always been sketchy. Disaster was bound to strike. Peace. Patrol officers pushed the crowd back. Stand back. Stop filming. Put your phones away. The lead Peace Patrol officer entered the hotel. His expression shifted upon witnessing the scene inside the room. Moments later, the identities of the 3 victims were confirmed. Employees of Yufeng Group, Sanitation Division. In an instant, the Peace Patrol officers exchanged glances. Ordinary homicide cases fell under their jurisdiction, but murders involving martial arts practitioners were not their responsibility, especially when the dead worked for Yufeng. They secured the crime scene, made brief notes, and soon withdrew. Half an hour later, a black unmarked SUV pulled smoothly up outside Jinyuan Hotel. No decorations adorned its body, save for a white emblem etched on the side door, a star intertwined with a sword. 3 characters stood clear beneath it. Martial Suppression Department. The doors opened, and 5 people climbed out. All wore black standard issue uniforms bearing the same white emblem on their chests. At their head stood a tall, impassive middle-aged man. He glanced upward toward the lit windows on the hotel's 6th floor. 4 team members followed him out of the vehicle. Beside the cordoned-off scene, Peace Patrol officers hurried forward to greet them. Officers from the Martial Suppression Department. The crime scene is on the 6th floor. The lead middle-aged man glanced at him. In his 40s, with a close, cropped haircut and broad shoulders, his uniform was immaculate. A standard issue short sword hung at his waist, his face devoid of excess emotion. His name was Lu Yong, captain of 8th Team, Grade 3 Martial Suppression Unit, Kunlun branch of the Martial Suppression Department. A Realm 3 beacon, Fire Perfection Chi, Blood Martial Arts Practitioner. Is the scene secured? The Peace Patrol officer answered promptly. It is. We completed initial checks upon discovering martial arts involvement and disturbed nothing afterward. Guards are posted outside room 602 on the 6th floor, and hotel staff are being held downstairs. Lu Yong gave a slight nod. Good. The rest of this matter falls to us. Hearing this, the Peace Patrol officers stepped aside. Lu Yong walked into the hotel, his 4 team members close behind. On his left walked Jiang Shui. In her 20s, her long hair tied into a ponytail, her gaze sharp and clear. A black body recorder hung at her waist, and she held a specialized tablet in her hands. To his right stood Ma Xiaoqian, short, statured, perpetually looking half asleep. The remaining 2 were Qin Hai and Zhou Chun. All 5 belonged to the Grade 3 Martial Suppression Unit. Aside from Lu Yong, the rest were late-stage Realm 3 Beacon Fire Practitioners. The elevator ascended. No one spoke inside the cabin. The doors slid open on the 6th floor, and the stench of blood washed over them. Jiang Shui's brows tightened as she activated her body recorder. The corridor lighting cast a yellow glow. At its far end hung the fractured askew door of room 602. Peace Patrol officers standing guard stepped aside for the Martial Suppression Department group. Lu Yong pulled on gloves and stepped into the room. The space lay in complete disarray. 3 corpses sprawled in different spots. One lay beside the TV cabinet, its neck snapped, its body twisted at unnatural angles. Another sat propped against the wall, its chest caved in, a short sword discarded at its feet, with clear cracking on the wall above its head. The last lay amid shattered glass from the tea table, its legs broken, having suffered a fatal blow to the head. Heavy impact marks on the door panel. The victim was slammed backward by the bursting, open door and crashed into the TV cabinet, then had its neck crushed by a follow-up kick, spine fractured, instant death. After examining the corpse beside the TV cabinet, Qin Hai moved over to the body leaning against the wall. He pressed on the victim's chest and frowned. Massive sternum shattering, heart vessels ruptured by blunt force shock. No weapon was used. Death resulted purely from overwhelming physical pressure. Zhou Chen opened a portable testing kit and quickly shared his findings. No star force residue. This was Qi, blood, martial arts, inflicted violence. Qin Hai nodded. The Qi blood impact was brutal. The perpetrator is at minimum realm 200 forging, not a novice at that level. Their Qi blood concentration suggests mid to late 100 forging stage. Near the tea table, Lu Yong knelt beside Mu Yi's mangled corpse. He inspected the jagged leg fractures, then rose to his feet. This was not a group ambush. Jiang Shui looked up. Lu Yong's gaze swept across doorways, floors, and walls. A single perpetrator entered the room. He forced the door open. The man behind it was hurled into the TV cabinet. The killer stepped inside and delivered the finishing kick. The second victim drew his blade to counterattack and was killed head-on. The last man attempted to fight back and had his leg shattered. It appears the victim was interrogated before being executed. Let's go to the security monitoring room and review the footage. Led by a Peace Patrol officer, The five proceeded to the ground floor security control room. The security guard stepped aside. Jiang Shui stepped forward, accessed the system with practiced ease, and pulled up sixth floor surveillance footage. Lu Yong stood directly before the monitors. Fast forward. The video played at 8-fold speed. Several minutes later, a figure appeared at the far end of the corridor. Pause. Play at normal speed, Lu Yong ordered. The footage resumed real-time playback. A young man around 19, dressed in casual, everyday clothing, walked steadily into frame. He wore no mask, no hat, and made no attempt to avoid the cameras. Lu Yong narrowed his eyes. He saw the surveillance cameras. Jiang Shui looked confused. He did. Lu Yong pointed toward the screen. Before entering the elevator, he glanced upward. He also glanced toward the corridor cameras as he walked. He knew he was being recorded. Ma Xiaoqian clicked his tongue. Then why did he still go up? Lu Yong's voice turned grave. Either he was under extreme time pressure, or the cost of exposing his identity mattered less to him than letting Mu Yi escape. The young man halted outside room 602. Then the door shook violently and burst inward. The young man stepped through and vanished into the camera blind spot inside the room. 4.5 minutes later, he emerged through the broken, hanging door. No large bloodstains marred his clothes. Only a few dark smudges marked his cuffs and shoe edges. He glanced down at them, wiped his hands with paper tissues, tossed the used tissues into a nearby trash bin, and walked toward the elevator without the slightest trace of panic, moving like an ordinary hotel guest. Ma Xiaoqian stared at the footage, drawing a sharp breath. In less than 5 minutes inside, he killed 3 people. Lu Yong watched the young man's departing figure and turned toward Jiang Shui. Reference this with the preliminary files sent over by the Peace Patrol Bureau. Jiang Shui tapped her specialized Martial Suppression Department tablet. The Peace Patrol Bureau had already forwarded preliminary identity data en route to the hotel. Now she checked the suspect's clear surveillance face shot against the crime scene victims. Matches were quickly confirmed. The 3 deceased matched the Peace Patrol Bureau's initial identification. The leader is Mu Yi, captain of Wolf, Grade Team 18 in Yufeng Group's Sanitation Division, Realm 1 Body, Refining Perfection. The other 2 are his core subordinates, Wang Feng and Zhou Guang, both late-stage body, refining practitioners. They regularly carried out Yufeng Group's dirty the books assignments. Ma Xiaoqian whistled softly. Brutal work. Jiang Shui shot him a glance. Ma Xiaoqian raised his hands in surrender. I'm just stating facts. Those Sanitation Division goons didn't even get a chance to run. The perpetrator must be enormously powerful and utterly decisive. Lu Yong did not disagree. The Sanitation Division operatives were seasoned combatants, not inexperienced amateurs. Jiang Shui said nothing, scrolling on her tablet and opening a newly matched full dossier. We have the perpetrator's identity. Jiang Shui swiped across the screen and read aloud. Chun Yi, male, 19, resident of Haiyun District, Kunlun City, second-year student at Kunlun University. Both parents are currently hospitalized in the intensive care unit of 5th People's Hospital. Younger sister Chen Yishi, senior, 3 student at Kunlun No. 3 High School, missing for half a month. She paused. Records show Chun Yi has no registered Qi, blood, martial arts cultivation history, no registered star, cultivation talent, and ordinary physical fitness test scores. Ma Xiaoqian leaned in for a look. An ordinary college student? He let out a scoff. If he's ordinary, I'm the handsomest man in Tianqing Prefecture. Qin Hai took the tablet and flipped through its contents. Chen Yishi's profile is likewise unremarkable. Kunlun No. 3 High School ran star, cultivation, talent tests half a month ago. Her entry reads no star, cultivation talent detected. The dossier appeared perfectly normal, indistinguishable from that of any average student. Lu Yong walked to the window and glanced down at the flashing police lights below. Pull records of recent unusual incidents linked to Chun Yi's household. Jiang Shui tapped rapidly on her tablet. The Martial Suppression Department's privileged network connected within seconds, bringing up relevant records. Found it. Jiang Shui's voice lowered. Half a month ago, Chen Yishi went missing. The Peace Patrol Bureau opened a missing persons case, yet she has never been located. Another incident. 5 days ago, Chen Yi's parents were assaulted on the street by several allegedly intoxicated men. Their injuries are critical, and they remain on ventilator support in 5th People's Hospital's ICU. She turned toward Lu Yong. The Peace Patrol Bureau's closed case report listed it as a random drunken assault. The assailants have been detained. Qin Hai let out a cold laugh. Drunken assault? That explanation only fools outsiders. 5 people. He wiped out an entire five-man squad single-handedly. Silence fell over the room. Jiang Shui spoke quietly. First he killed Zhao Deshang and Lu Tao, then traveled to Jinyuan Hotel to kill Mu Yi's trio. He must have extracted Mu Yi's location from the two men he killed earlier. Ma Xiaoqian stroked his chin. This kid thinks things through. He wasn't just killing in a blind rage. Lu Yong issued his confirmation. The perpetrator is confirmed. Chen Yi. He pulled out his phone and dialed an internal Martial Suppression Department line. This is Lu Yong, captain of Grade 3 Martial Suppression 8th Team. Lock target. Chen Yi, male, 19 years old, student at Kunlun University. First carry out base station positioning on his mobile phone, then access the city-wide traffic surveillance footage, payment records, taxi and ride-hailing logs. The target is suspected to be a second-realm body refining martial artist, implicated in the deaths of 5 martial artists. Send me updates immediately once you get any leads. After the call ended, silence hung over the monitoring room for several seconds. Jiang Shui asked, Captain Lu, move in for an arrest directly? Lu Yong stared at the young face displayed on the screen. Secure him first. Ma Xiaoqian spoke up. What if he resists? Lu Yong slipped his phone back into his pocket. We act in accordance with the town martial division regulations. Jiang Shui said nothing to contradict him. Chen Yi had killed men from Yufeng Cleanup Division. That group had dirty blood on their hands, and no one would mourn their deaths. Still, Kunlun City could not allow a second-realm martial artist to kill freely and escape the city afterwards. Minutes later, Lu Yong's phone vibrated. An internal tracking report popped up. Chen Yi's mobile signal was still active, but it could only be traced to a base station sector heading out of the city, with no precise coordinates available. The trajectory data from ride-hailing platforms offered clearer clues. The target had boarded a taxi and left Heiyun District, traveling toward the outskirts of the city. An analysis combining traffic surveillance footage, payment records, and the taxi's real-time route projected his destination, Azure Dome Mountain. When Jiang Shui saw the location, she froze. Azure Dome Mountain. Ma Xiaoqian looked equally stunned. That place is where the Gate of Chaotic Heaven is located? Lu Yong's gaze remained fixed on the screen, and his brows finally furrowed. The Gate of Chaotic Heaven, an ancient martial sect with roots in Kunlun City. It had sealed off most of its mountain grounds for years, keeping such a low profile that even the Patrol Security Division had nearly forgotten its existence. Yet the name still carried considerable weight within the town martial division. Deep within that mountain dwelled old powerhouses capable of shaking Kunlun City to its core. Lu Yong turned and strode toward the door. Get in the vehicle. 5 people quickly boarded a black SUV. The engine roared to life, its headlights cutting through the night. Ma Xiaoqian fastened her seatbelt and muttered, This kid killed Yufeng's men, and instead of hiding or fleeing, he's heading straight for the Gate of Chaotic Heaven. What exactly is he planning? Central District, Kunlun City, Tianyu Manor. This was the Yang clan's territory. Built atop one of the few independent hills in the city center, the manor spanned a vast area. It was ringed by high walls with hidden sentries posted everywhere. 3 guard checkpoints stood between the mountain foot and the inner grounds of the manor. The first checked vehicle plates. The second verified identities. The third was manned by the Yang clan's own private guards. Ordinary civilians could not even reach the foot of the hill. Deep within the manor lay a quiet courtyard. It was expansive, paved with white jade flagstones and lined with ancient pine trees. Lamplights spilled down from the eaves onto a training platform at its center. Rock formations, spring water, and stone lanterns were all positioned with meticulous care. Anyone versed in stellar arrays would see at a glance that every stone and stream had been arranged to draw and concentrate stellar energy. Seated cross-legged on the training platform was a young girl. She was 18, bearing a passing resemblance to Chen Yi, though her features were softer, still carrying the air of a high school student. This was none other than Chen Yi's younger sister, Chen Yishi. Half a month earlier, she had still been a senior student at Kunlun No. 3 High School. Now she was the personal disciple of Yang Wanda. Thick streams of starlight converged from all directions and settled upon her body. The starlight seeped into her skin, coalescing into a bright luminous curtain behind her dotted with tiny stellar specks. With every breath she took, those specks glowed a little brighter. Stellar energy circulated through her meridians and finally gathered in her dantian, condensing into droplets of crystal-clear stellar liquid. Beside the training platform stood an elderly man in white robes. His hair and beard were snow-white, yet his back remained straight. He held a white jade ruler in one hand and wore a gentle smile, looking no different from an elderly scholar tutoring students. Yang Wanda, an elder of the Yang clan, a sixth realm star refiner. He stood among the most powerful figures in Kunlun City. Right now, he watched Shinichi, unable to conceal the shock in his eyes. Truly worthy of a god-tier talent. It had only been half a month since she first came into contact with stellar cultivation techniques, and she had already reached full mastery of the second realm, stellar liquid. Such progress could not be described merely by the word genius. For ordinary people who awaken their talents, sensing stellar energy and stepping onto the path of cultivation would take at minimum 1 or 2 months. But Shinichi? She had never touched the stellar cultivation system before. No cultivation resources to lay a foundation. No master guiding her in advance. After being brought here by him, she had studied for half a month and attained full mastery of the second realm. Her natural affinity was simply inconceivable. Gradually, the starlight faded away. Shinichi opened her eyes. She rose from the platform and bowed respectfully to Yang Wanda. Master. Her voice was clear and pleasant, her manner obedient. Yang Wanda's smile grew warmer. Well done. He lifted the white jade ruler and tapped the training platform. You have reached full mastery of second realm stellar liquid with a solid foundation. Spend a few more days consolidating your gains, and you will be ready to break through to the third realm, stellar aperture. Joy lit up Shinichi's face. Truly, naturally. Yang Wanda nodded. With your talent, the third realm poses no great hurdle. As long as you have sufficient resources, your advancement through each subsequent realm will remain swift. Shinichi pressed her lips together in a smile, which quickly faded. She longed to smile freely, yet thoughts of her parents and elder brother weighed on her heart. It had been half a month since she left home. She had no mobile phone, no news from outside. Every day consisted of cultivation, and nothing but cultivation. This was not the first time she had asked about her family. During the first few days after arriving, she had questioned him almost every day. Yet the answer she received was always much the same. The outside world was dangerous. Her talent must not be exposed. Cultivation required undivided focus. After repeated disappointments, she dared not press him too eagerly. Her master treated her well. Food, lodging, cultivation resources, and explanations of stellar arts were never lacking. Still, she missed home. She missed the tomato and egg noodles her mother cooked. She missed the warm steamed buns her father would bring home each evening after work. She missed her elder brother Chin-Yi, who would grumble about her being bothersome yet stay to help her work through math problems. Shinichi lowered her head and twisted the hem of her clothing. Master. Yang Wanda looked at her. What do you wish to say? Shinichi lifted her head, her tone soft. You once said that once I reach the fifth realm, you will allow me to return home to see my parents and brother. Is that true? Yang Wanda smiled. Of course it is. Relief washed over Shinichi. Then I will work hard. Yang Wanda stepped closer, his tone gentle. Ishi, you value your family deeply, and that is a virtue. As I have told you before, if you show yourself prematurely, you will only bring danger to your loved ones. The mention of her family made her expression tense. Will they be in danger? That is precisely why I cannot let you return now. Yang Wanda spoke slowly, every word sounding as though carefully considered for her sake. Rest assured, on the day you became my disciple, I sent men bearing generous gifts to your home to speak with your parents. I explained your situation and reassured them. Your parents and brother know you are in a safe place cultivating. Shinichi's eyes brightened. Really? Has your master ever lied to you? Shinichi quickly shook her head. No, she hesitated for a moment, then asked quietly. Can I send them a message? Just one short line. I fear they are worried. Yang Wanda's smile did not waver. Not now. Shinichi's fingers tightened. Yang Wanda let out a soft sigh. You have only just embarked on the path of stellar cultivation. Your mind must not be disturbed. If you send one message today, tomorrow you will wish to make a call. Once you speak over the phone, you will crave a meeting. When your heart is divided, your cultivation progress will stall. The path of cultivation abodes heavy mortal attachments above all else. Shinichi fell silent. Yang Wanda raised a hand and patted her shoulder lightly. Once you reach the fifth realm, I will personally escort you home. You may stay with them for as many days as you wish. Shinichi looked up. Will reaching the fifth realm happen soon? Not for others. Yang Wanda met her gaze, his smile deepening. But for you, it will not take long. Shinichi nodded. Very well. She did not bring up sending messages again. Deep down, a faint sense of unease lingered. Why were calls forbidden? Why was even a single message prohibited? Why had her mobile phone been taken away? Why, after her talent was detected at school, had the principal, her teacher, and the Yang clan's men all urged her to leave immediately? They had said such a rare opportunity could not wait. They had warned that exposure of God, tier talent would attract deadly threats. They had told her being accepted as a personal disciple by Elder Yang was a fortune countless people in Kunlun City could only dream of. She had been afraid back then. She had asked if she ought to inform her parents and brother first. The principal had told her the special recruitment was urgent, and the Yang clan would send representatives to notify her family, so she need not worry. Her teacher had echoed the persuasion. All formalities had been rushed through. Yang Wanda had remained kind throughout, never raising his voice or forcing her into anything. Within the Yang manor, she enjoyed top-grade stellar medicine, a private courtyard, constant guardians, and expert instruction on stellar arts. By all appearances, he was no villain. Perhaps she was merely imagining things. She clung to one single thought now: advance quickly to the fifth realm. Return home as soon as possible. When the day came, she would surprise her brother. She would be strong enough to protect her parents and him, escaping the difficult life they had led before. Young Wanda watched her closely, his gaze lingering on her face. Ishi. There is another matter. Young Wanda gestured toward the east. Kunlun City lacks sufficient resources. The concentration of stellar energy here cannot support your rapid advancement to higher realms. Shin Ishi looked startled. What can be done? Tianqing Prefecture. Yang Wanda said. Once you break through to the third realm in the coming days, I will take you there personally. A true master of stellar cultivation resides there. The resources, stellar techniques, and cultivation insights he possesses far surpass anything available in Kunlun City. You will still make progress staying here, but you will advance much faster in Tianqing Prefecture. Shun Ishi hesitated. Will we be gone for a long time? Not overly. Yang Wanda smiled. It will simply be a chance for you to broaden your horizons. A god-tier talent ought not to be confined within Kunlun City. Shun Ishi did not give an immediate answer. She stared at the edge of the training platform. Tianqing Prefecture sounded far away, farther even than the Yang Manor. The farther she traveled from home, the less secure she felt. Yang Wanda stood quietly, waiting for her reply. After a moment, Shin Ishi lifted her head. If I go to Tianqing Prefecture, will I reach the fifth realm faster? I promise you will. Then I will go. Shin Ishi spoke earnestly. I want to see my parents and brother sooner. Young Wanda nodded with a smile. Good child. Night wind drifted into the courtyard, making the lamplight beneath the eaves flicker gently. Shin Ishi glanced once more at the training platform. Traces of starlight still lingered on its surface, tiny luminous specks slowly dimming on the flagstones. She bowed to take her leave. Master, I shall return to my quarters now. Go and rest well. Young Wanda waved his hand. His gesture seemed casual, yet his eyes never left Shinichi. His smile unchanged, his expression unfathomable. The taxi pulled to a stop at the foot of Azure Dome Mountain. Chun-Yi pushed open the door and stepped out. He glanced forward, his brows twitching slightly. The scene differed from what he had imagined. No remote ancient forest, no secluded sect gate. The mountain foothills had been developed into a tourist scenic area. A long queue snaked before the ticket office. Food stalls and souvenir shops lined the commercial street. And crowds of tourists packed the shuttle bus stop amid constant chatter. Private vehicles were barred from entering. Anyone wishing to travel deeper into the mountains had to board the official scenic shuttle buses. And the gate of chaotic heaven stood halfway up the mountain slope. Chun-Yi wasted no time buying a ticket and boarding a shuttle bus. One vehicle was about to depart, almost full of passengers. He took a window seat in the second to last row and stared out silently. Less than 30 seconds later, someone stopped beside him. Excuse me, is this seat taken? Chun-Yi turned his head. The speaker was a young man around 20 years old. His skin tone was slightly dark, his facial features more defined than most Kyushu natives, with deep eye sockets and amber-hued pupils. He wore well-tailored casual clothes. A citizen of the Red Moon Nation. Chun-Yi had seen many such travelers online and felt no surprise, merely giving a slight nod. The young man sat down and immediately began talking. My name is Hu Yen. I'm visiting from the Red Moon Nation, traveling in Kyushu for the first time. He glanced out the window and smiled. Azure Dome Mountain is quite scenic. I heard there is a mysterious martial sect deep within. Chun-Yi shot him a brief look. You could say that. May I ask your name? Are you a local? Are you here sightseeing too? I read travel guides saying the Gate of Chaotic Heaven was once quite renowned even across Tianqing Prefecture. Hu Yen kept talking freely. He chatted about Azure Dome Mountain, Kyushu customs, border cities in the Red Moon Nation, and the differences in cultivation systems across nations on Blue Star. He was clearly a chatterbox. Chun-Yi's mind was occupied with thoughts of cultivation techniques, his sister, his parents, and the threads of the Yufeng group case. He had no desire for idle conversation with a stranger, responding only occasionally. Perhaps. Hu Yin did not take the silence personally. Seeing Chun Yi was unwilling to engage, he turned and tapped the shoulder of a local man sitting in the front row. Sir, do you come here often? Within a few exchanges, the two struck up a conversation. Chun Yi welcomed the reprieve. He leaned back against the seat and closed his eyes to gather his thoughts. Half an hour later, the shuttle bus arrived at the terminal stop within the scenic area. Tourists poured out of the vehicle. Chun Yi walked at the rear of the crowd and crossed the open clearing ahead. His gaze settled straight ahead. A vast flight of white stone steps rose before him. The staircase climbed steeply upward along the mountain slope, stretching straight into the mist high above, vanishing from sight. Warning tape lined both sides of the steps. Wooden walkways had been built outside the tape for ordinary tourists, who were only permitted to circle the foothills. A prominent metal warning sign stood at the entrance. Engraved in large characters, Gate of Chaotic Heaven, restricted area. Unauthorized entry prohibited. Violators bear full responsibility for consequences. Tourists must use the wooden walkways on either side. Nearby, a tour guide shouted through a loudspeaker. Everyone stay on the side paths. Do not step onto the central white staircase. That is territory for martial practitioners with strict rules. If you provoke trouble, the scenic area will not take responsibility. Chun Yi glanced at the sign. He stepped forward and walked straight toward the staircase. The noisy crowd fell silent for 2 heartbeats. Then the tourists erupted into murmurs. Whoa, is he really going up the middle path? Who is that guy? Didn't he see the warning sign? He must be from the Gate of Chaotic Heaven. Otherwise he wouldn't dare. He doesn't look like one of them, dressed so plainly. Chun Yi heard every word, yet he did not turn his head. He had reached full mastery of body refining. With over 200 points of physical constitution, the strength in his legs far exceeded ordinary humans. He pushed off with his toes, ascending 3 steps in a single stride. Vital energy surged within his body. Power erupting through his legs, he moved swiftly, hearing nothing but mountain wind rushing past his ears. Chun Yi prepared to quicken his pace further. A familiar voice suddenly called out from several meters behind him. Brother Chun, are you heading for the Gate of Chaotic Heaven as well? Chun Yi halted and spun around. It was Hu Yin, and he was not alone. A young girl stood beside him, around 16 or 17 years old. She also bore the distinctive features of the Red Moon Nation. Dressed in white sportswear, she possessed striking beauty, yet her expression was icy cold. What truly stunned Chun Yi was not their appearance at this location, but how they had managed to follow him. As a body-refining master with sharpened senses, he could hear footsteps dozens of meters away. Yet Hu Yin and the girl had closed to within a few meters of him without making a single audible sound. Moments earlier, he had been advancing quickly, taking 3 steps at a time. The two had caught up effortlessly, their breathing steady and clothing undisturbed. Most importantly, they did not radiate the intense heat typical of martial artists who cultivate vital energy. They were almost certainly star refiners, and of considerable realm. Chun Yi suppressed the shock in his heart and regained a calm expression. You two are going there too? Hu Yin walked closer and gestured at the girl beside him. This is my cousin, Hu Xiner. We are curious about Kyushu. While traveling here, our elders instructed us to pay visits to local factions and forge connections. He lifted his gaze toward the staircase, vanishing into mist. The Gate of Chaotic Heaven is our first stop. Chun Yi glanced at Hu Xiner. She did not meet his eyes. Her gaze remained fixed on the distant mountain path. Her expression unchanged. The three began ascending the white stone steps together. Hu Yin trod lightly as he walked and asked, Brother Chun, what brings you to the Gate of Chaotic Heaven? Are you visiting relatives? I am here to learn martial arts. Chun Yi's reply was concise. Hu Yin paused. He turned to look Chun Yi over carefully, confusion entering his tone. You possess stellar cultivation talent. Why train in martial arts instead? The martial path demands endless hardship. Chun Yi's heart skipped a beat. He stared at Hu Yin. His stellar cultivation talent had only risen to medium grade. After the system amplified it over the past few days, stellar talent could normally only be measured with specialized equipment. Yet Hu Yin could discern it merely by sight. This man was extraordinary. Chun Yi showed no sign of alarm, letting out a self-deprecating laugh. I am just an ordinary person. My stellar talent is mediocre. Stellar cultivation costs vast resources and depends heavily on luck. I might achieve nothing pursuing it. Martial arts are more reliable in comparison. Hu Yin studied him for 2 full seconds, then nodded. The path ahead remains long. My cousin and I will press on ahead. Hu Yin waved toward Chun Yi. In the next instant, he and Hu Xiner pushed off the ground. Their feet barely made contact with the stone steps as they surged forward at astonishing speed. Several bounds carried them far ahead of Chun-Yi. Soon their figures vanished into the mist at the top of the staircase. Hu Xiner had not spoken a single word the entire time. She had not even glanced up when passing beside him. It was not deliberate arrogance. It was innate disregard for those she deemed unworthy of attention. Chun-Yi stood on the stone steps, watching the direction where they had disappeared. His fingers slowly clenched into fists. He had thought breaking through to full-body refining mastery meant he had made remarkable progress. Now he understood. It was not enough. Far from enough. Half an hour later, at the end of the white stone steps stretched a broad, flat stone plaza. Right in the center of the plaza stood a tall stone archway. Two massive stone pillars rose on either side of the mountain path, supporting a large horizontal plaque between them. 3 characters were carved into the plaque: Hun Tian Sect. Chun-Yi halted and stared at them for a moment. Behind the mountain gate, a stone trail wound deeper into the mountains. Faint, heavy shouts of men practicing martial arts drifted over from afar, too muffled to make out clearly. The cultivation techniques lay within, yet 2 young disciples stood guard beneath the gate. Both wore white robes, their long hair tied up and cuffs fastened, dressed in a style steeped in antiquity. The disciple on the left had a long sword hanging from his waist. The one on the right carried a blade at his hip. As Chun-Yi stepped onto the final stone step, the disciple on the left strode forward and raised a hand to block his path. "Halt, visitor." Chun-Yi stopped. The disciple on the right cast him a glance. "Who are you? What brings you to the Hun Tian sect?" Chun-Yi cut straight to the point. "I wish to seek apprenticeship and learn martial arts." The 2 disciples exchanged a look. The left one shook his head. "Seek apprenticeship? You should turn back. Our sect is not accepting new disciples at this time." Chun-Yi frowned slightly. "I already have a foundation in martial arts, and my physical vitality is fairly solid. Could you please pass word ahead and grant me a chance to take the assessment?" The disciple's tone remained cold, though he made no deliberate attempt to obstruct him. "This is not a matter of talent. The Hun Tian sect only recruits disciples on fixed dates, following established rules. For the past few years, our sect has been partially closed to outsiders, and we turn away all external visitors." The right disciple spoke up as well. "If you have come merely to sightsee, please take the wooden boardwalk on the outer path. The Hun Tian sect grounds are not open to casual visitors." Chun-Yi said, "I am willing to undergo any assessment." The right disciple cut him off directly. "No assessments will be held now. If you truly wish to join the Hun Tian sect, return in 2 years. The sect will hold unified recruitment examinations when the gate opens again." Chun-Yi fell silent. 2 years? In 2 years, he had no idea how far he would have progressed. His attributes doubled every single day. By then, would he even still come here to learn martial arts? Time was precisely what he lacked. What a setback. Staring at the 2 guarding disciples, Chun-Yi realized his earlier expectations had been dashed. Before coming, he had thought far too simply. He believed that with his current physical condition, if he displayed even a hint of talent, the Hun Tian sect would surely offer him an opportunity. Reality proved otherwise. The longer a sect's heritage, the more rigid its rules. Chun-Yi glanced down the stone path past the gate. Those distant shouts of practitioners echoed over once more. A heavy sense of frustration welled up inside him. The left disciple said, "There is no need to ask further. We are only gate guards. We have no authority to make exceptions. Please take your leave." Chun-Yi pulled his gaze away. Forcing his way in was out of the question. No matter how robust his physique, he was not arrogant enough to challenge a profound sect built upon vitality cultivation. He would need to find another way. Suppressing his impatience, Chun-Yi folded his hands in a salute. "My apologies for disturbing you." With that, he turned to head down the mountain. Just then, a familiar voice rang out from within the gate. "Brother Chun." Chun-Yi froze mid-step. He turned his head to look. Huyan was walking out from the archway. He wore the same gentle, approachable expression he had had when they met at the foot of the mountain. Hu Xiner was not with him this time. Instead, a middle-aged man walked beside him. The man wore a dark, golden robe, with a tall, broad frame and thick shoulders. His footsteps barely made any sound against the flagstones. At first glance, there seemed nothing extraordinary about him, appearing merely to be seeing a guest off with a calm expression. But the instant his gaze landed on Chun-Yi, a heavy weight crashed over Chun-Yi's chest. It was not killing intent, nor hostility. It was merely the natural scrutiny of a high-tier martial artist. Still, the oppressive aura it carried tensed every muscle in Chun-Yi's body. Powerful. Incredibly powerful. Astoundingly so. No blazing vitality flared outward, and he did not make a single movement. Yet that invisible pressure washed over Chun-Yi, making it hard to draw breath. Chun-Yi's breath hitched, and cold sweat broke out across his back. Luo Yonghu, who had reached the 100 refinements realm, could not even compare to this man. This was what a true high-tier vitality martial artist was capable of. When the two gate-guarding disciples caught sight of the man in the dark golden robe, their faces paled at once. They quickly bowed. "We pay our respects to the sect master." "Sect master?" Chen Yi's heart skipped a beat. The sect master of the Huntian sect looked at Chen Yi, then turned to Hu Yan. "Do you know this young man, young master Hu?" Hu Yan smiled faintly. "You could say so." He said no more, letting the sentence hang. Sect master Xue nodded, choosing not to press for details. Hu Yan turned and clasped his fists toward the sect master. "Sect master Xue, I have other arrangements to attend to, so I shall take my leave now. My sister Xiner will remain at the Huntian sect for the time being. I would trouble you to look after her." Sect master Xue replied, "Rest assured, young master Hu. She will come to no harm within the Huntian sect." Hu Yan laughed. "I will not linger then. I hope we may meet again for a visit at some point in the future." Sect master Xue said, "Safe travels." Hu Yan turned to walk down the mountain. He paused as he passed beside Chen Yi and inclined his head slightly. He said nothing, yet the message was clear. An opportunity had appeared. Whether Chen Yi could seize it depended entirely on himself. Chen Yi nodded back at him. He would owe this favor. Hu Yan smiled, hands behind his back, and continued descending the white stone steps. Moments later, his figure vanished from sight. A hush fell over the mountain gate. Chen Yi did not hesitate. He turned to face Sect Master Xue and cupped his hands. "Sect Master." The man looked back at him. The two gate disciples stood to the side, not daring to interrupt. Chen Yi said, "My name is Chen Yi. I wish to join the Huntian sect to study martial arts. Might I request a chance?" Sect Master Xue did not answer immediately. He studied Chen Yi from head to toe. He looked ordinary. At least outwardly, there was nothing remarkable about him. Under normal circumstances, someone like him would not even be worthy of speaking directly to the sect master. The gate disciples would have sent him down the mountain long ago. But Hu Yan's casual remark of, "You could say so," carried considerable weight. The Huntian sect chose to keep a low profile these days and had no wish to make unnecessary enemies. Furthermore, Chen Yi had managed to climb all the way here, and his aura was clearly far beyond that of an ordinary person. After a short pause, Sect Master Xue spoke. "You have practiced martial arts?" Chen Yi answered, "I have." "What realm have you reached?" 100 refinements. Sect Master Xue's gaze lingered on him. "You are young, yet not youthful enough to be a prodigy." Chen Yi did not respond. 19 years old and already at 100 refinements. In the outside world, that would draw plenty of attention, but he had no idea what standard the Huntian sect held. Perhaps it was all because of Hu Yan's earlier words. Eventually, he let out a quiet hum. "Very well." The two gate disciples lifted their heads in surprise. Sect Master Xue ordered, "Escort him to test his natural aptitude. If he meets the requirements, admit him to the sect by special dispensation." Chen Yi bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Sect Master." He said nothing further and walked through the sect gate. With one step, he covered several zhongs. Another step, and he vanished from the area before the gate without so much as stirring the wind. The same two gate disciples led Chen Yi deeper into the sect grounds. After traveling a short distance, they stopped before a large hall. A plaque hung above the entrance, bearing 3 characters, Martial Aptitude Hall. Chen Yi glanced upward briefly before stepping inside. The hall looked different from what he had imagined. Smooth gray flagstones paved the floor, and all tables and chairs were crafted from red sandalwood, lending the place the authentic aura of an ancient sect. Yet rows of cool white ceiling lamps lit the space, and 2 cabinet air conditioners stood against the walls, their fans whirring as they blew cool air. An ancient martial sect equipped with modern appliances, practical in its own way. In the center of the hall stood a long red sandalwood table. Seated behind it was a red-robed elder. On the table rested a tablet computer, scroll registers, and several tools used for bone assessment. When the door opened, everyone inside turned to look. One of the gate disciples hurried forward and bowed. "Elder, the sect master personally instructed us to bring Chen Yi here for an aptitude assessment." The man in red raised an eyebrow. "The sect master?" He looked first at the disciple, then at Chen Yi. "Speak clearly. Did the sect master give this order himself?" "Yes, elder. We dare not fabricate such news." The several young disciples inside the hall exchanged glances. The Huntian sect had remained partially closed for years, and external visitors were rare. Even rarer was someone granted entry on the sect master's direct orders. The red-robed elder did not rush to begin the assessment. Instead, he sized Chen Yi up thoroughly. "Name: Chen Yi. Age: 19. Your cultivation realm? 100 refinements. The red-robed elder pressed further. Be specific. Initial stage? Middle stage? Chen Yi's tone remained steady. Peak. 100 refinements peak. 19 years old, 100 refinements peak. That marked solid talent, comparable to the sect's inner disciples, but personally sanctioned by the sect master. There must be some other reason. Uncertain what to make of the situation, the red-robed elder walked aside and took out his mobile phone to make a call. Hello, this is the Martial Aptitude Hall. Yes, a young man has arrived, said to be sent on the sect master's orders. Named Chen Yi, 19 years old. He claims to be at 100 refinements peak. A reply came quickly from the other end of the line. What? Sixth elder happens to be free? He intends to come oversee this personally. He set down the phone and looked back at Chen Yi. Wait here for now. Chen Yi asked, will we not begin the assessment now? The red-robed elder hesitated. By regulation, I would normally conduct the test. But since you are the sect master's referral, we have received word that sixth elder will come to see you himself. He did not need to wait long. Footsteps echoed from the rear chamber. An elderly man emerged. His hair gray, yet his frame sturdy. He wore gray training attire with a white outer robe draped over his shoulders. Holding a vacuum flask in one hand, the red-robed elder stood quickly. Sixth elder, you have arrived. The young disciples also hastened to bow. Greetings, elder. The old man waved a hand dismissively. Enough of the formalities. He set his vacuum flask casually on the table and ambled over to Chen Yi, studying him from head to toe. You are Chen Yi. Chen Yi clasped his hands. Greetings, sixth elder. The old man nodded. I am Li Zanshan, sixth elder of the Hun Tian sect. I oversee aptitude testing and also manage part of the transmission of cultivation techniques. He gestured toward a low red sandalwood stool and slowly pulled on a thin pair of gloves. Sit there. The Hun Tian sect judges aptitude based on 2 criteria. First, bone palpation. We assess your skeletal foundation, whether your muscles and tendons can withstand the tempering of vitality, and how robust your innate physique is. Second, comprehension. We provide a cultivation technique and observe how quickly you learn it, and how well you grasp movement patterns and vitality circulation paths. His explanation was straightforward. Chen Yi nodded. Li Zanshan added a reminder. Stay relaxed. Do not channel your vitality to resist my touch, or the test results will be inaccurate. Chen Yi pulled over the stool and sat, resting both hands upon his knees. Li Zanshan stepped behind him and laid his hands on Chen Yi's shoulder blades, pressing gently downward along his shoulders. A referral from the sect master was one thing, but a 19-year-old at 100 refinements peak was only moderately talented, likely fit to be merely an inner disciple within the Hun Tian sect. For that reason, Li Zanshan's movements started off casual. Yet the moment he applied a little pressure, his brows suddenly furrowed. The sensation beneath his fingers. It was wrong. Doubt rising, Li Zanshan channeled a wisp of vitality into his fingertips and pressed harder against Chen Yi's shoulder bones once more. This second touch wiped all casualness from his face. Every human skeleton bears gaps. Even 100 refinements martial artists retain a coarse texture in their bone structure before vitality washes deep into the marrow. But Chen Yi's skeleton possessed astonishing density, and the tendons and muscles beneath his skin were unnaturally compact. Li Zanshan cast aside his initial disregard, using both hands to feel along Chen Yi's bones, shoulders, spine, arms, wrists. His movements grew faster, and his frown deepened by the second. The red-robed elder watched, growing confused. Normally, sixth elder finished bone palpation in a dozen seconds. Today he had been at it for nearly 2 minutes, and his expression grew stranger by the moment. Something was clearly out of the ordinary. Meanwhile, Li Zanshan was overwhelmed with shock. Chen Yi's body did not seem to have been gradually refined through consistent practice of a single set of techniques from childhood onward. It was as if someone had forged this physique to an extremely high standard first, before formal martial cultivation even began. The thought sounded absurd, yet what his hands told him could not be false. Chen Yi's flesh, tendons, bones, and vitality were far stronger than they appeared. It was a stark contrast to the information he had shared about himself. After some time, Li Zanshan stopped touching him and fixed Chen Yi with a stare. What cultivation technique have you been practicing? Chen Yi replied, Black Tiger Art, first and second volumes, alongside Black Tiger Palm and Black Tiger Steps. Li Zanshan's eyes twitched. Black Tiger Art? That discarded, low-grade martial art sold cheaply to common folk? How long have you trained it? A short time. How short? Do not try to deceive me. Tell me exactly. Chen Yi paused briefly. Truly not long. Li Zanshin chose not to press further, only staring at him for several breaths. The low-grade Black Tiger art, sold by Martial Studios, could never forge a physique like this. It was impossible. Still, since Chun-Yi refused to elaborate, he did not dig into the matter openly. His bone structure was already baffling enough. Now it was time to test his comprehension. Li Zanshin turned and gave an order. Xiao Sun, fetch a basic fist technique manual. The red-robed elder asked. There are many volumes. Which one? Tiger rending fist. The red-robed elder soon retrieved a thin booklet from the bookshelf, its edges worn pale from frequent use for assessments. Li Zanshin took it and handed it to Chun-Yi. Take this. Tiger rending fist is a basic fist art, suitable for physique training and usable by those at 100 refinements. It contains diagrams and oral formulas. Read it through first, then demonstrate a segment for me. He added another note. Do not worry about mastering it fully. We only wish to see how much you can retain and how well you understand the principles. Chun-Yi accepted the booklet and flipped open the first page. The stances, methods of generating force, breathing rhythm, and footwork were all clearly recorded. He turned the pages rapidly, one after another. The young disciples watching wore odd expressions. One youth carrying a blade sheath frowned and whispered quietly. Good grief, he's turning pages that fast. How can he possibly absorb anything? Another disciple muttered beside him. He probably finds it too difficult and is just flipping through to put on a show. The red-robed elder looked toward Li Zanshin, equally confused. Li Zanshin said nothing, keeping his gaze fixed on Chun-Yi's hands. In merely a few seconds, Chun-Yi reached the final page. Slap. He closed the booklet. A system prompt flickered across his mind. Realm, 100 refinements peak. Skills, 6th generation calisthenics peak, basic combat peak, Black Tiger art peak, Black Tiger palm peak, Black Tiger steps peak, Tiger rending fist peak. Tiger rending fist had reached peak mastery. Chun-Yi set the booklet back on the table, his expression unchanged. Li Zanshin looked at him. What is this? You are stopping already. Chun-Yi said, I have finished reading. Li Zanshin raised an eyebrow. Cannot understand it? Think it is too challenging. Chun-Yi shook his head. I have already learned it. Silence descended over the hall. Only the whir of the air conditioner remained audible. The youth with the blade sheath froze on the spot. The disciples who had whispered earlier lifted their heads, and the red-robed elder's hand holding his tablet halted mid-air. Li Zanshin stared at Chun-Yi. What did you just say? Chun-Yi repeated himself. I said, I have learned it. Li Zanshin nearly laughed out of exasperation. You read it once, and now you know it? Chun-Yi did not argue. He simply nodded, walked to the center of the hall, and settled into a stance. Without unnecessary words, he began practicing the fist form. Tiger rending fist itself was not complex, yet simpler techniques relied entirely on foundational skill. The skeptical youth's face slowly stiffened as he watched, and the red-robed elder sat up straighter. He had worked in the martial aptitude hall for years and seen countless people practice tiger rending fist. Some memorized the movements, yet messed up their force generation. Some roughly followed the forms, but stumbled over their footwork. Others could recite the formulas perfectly, yet devolved into clumsy flailing the moment they moved. Chun-Yi was nothing like them. Punching, drawing back his elbow, twisting his hips, stepping forward, every motion flowed naturally. It was as if he had practiced this fist art countless times before. When he finished the sequence, Chun-Yi held his final stance steadily. No one in the hall spoke. Li Zanshin stepped before Chun-Yi and stared at him for several long breaths. Tell me the truth. Have you secretly practiced tiger rending fist before? I have not. Then at the very least, you have seen it performed? I have not. Li Zanshin refused to let it go. Have you trained any fist arts with similar patterns? Chun-Yi thought for a moment. Aside from basic combat techniques, only Black Tiger Palm. Li Zanshin shook his head outright. Black Tiger Palm follows an entirely different path. He flipped through the manual on the table. The book was genuine, and Chun-Yi had read it under his direct observation. Only one conclusion remained. Chun-Yi truly had mastered it after a single reading. Li Zanshin had lived a long life and assessed countless disciples. He had seen those with strong bone foundations and those with sharp comprehension. But never had he met such a monster who could scan a basic fist art in seconds and perform it to this standard. This surpassed mere genius. He was monstrously talented. Still unwilling to believe it, Li Zanshin called out. Xiao Sunday. Elder's son hurried forward. Yes, sixth elder, what are your orders? Li Zanshin's gaze returned to Chun-Yi. Chun-Yi carried no weapons. His knuckles were evenly shaped, without the thick calluses built up over years of wielding swords or blades. He could claim luck with fist techniques, that he happened to practice something similar. But blade techniques? The odds of coincidence vanished. Li Zanshin turned to Elder Sunday. Go fetch an advanced martial art manual. Elder Sun blinked. An advanced one? Another fist art? Li Zanshin said. Make it blade technique. Elder Sun walked over to a locked bookshelf section. He unlocked the cabinet with his access authority and took out a thick manual. For characters were printed on the cover. Mountain Severing Blade Art. Elder Sun placed the booklet before Chen-Yi. Here you go. Mountain Severing Blade Art is a genuine advanced martial art. Those at 100 refinements can barely utilize it. It packs formidable power and is far harder to master. It contains not only stances, but also vitality circulation paths to channel energy into the blade, which are quite intricate. He could not resist adding a warning. If you find it incomprehensible, speak up. Do not force yourself to practice blindly. You could suffer severe internal injury. It was not mockery, but genuine caution. Advanced martial arts existed on an entirely different level from basic fist techniques. Mistakes practicing basic forms only led to awkward movements or minor muscle strain. Misunderstanding the vitality circuits within advanced arts could cause internal vitality backlash. It was a very dangerous predicament. Chen-Yi said nothing more. He picked up the manual and opened to the first page. The opening chapter outlined blade momentum, stances, and how to bear weight through the arms. The second covered grip. The third began detailing downward chops and slashes, followed by a host of other techniques further on. The vitality circulation paths were indeed far more complex than those of Tiger Rending Fist. Yet once Chen-Yi focused his attention, he realized this so-called advanced art merely contained more information to memorize. He continued turning pages at his astonishing pace. Silence filled the hall. Every pair of eyes fixed on his hands. Especially the youth with the blade sheath, whose expression grew increasingly rigid. He alone knew how convoluted and difficult mountain severing blade art truly was. It had taken him 3 full months just to grasp the fundamentals. 3 months. Yet this man flipped through the manual in mere seconds? Was he studying the techniques, or skimming for typographical errors? Soon enough, Chen-Yi reached the last page. Paper rustled as he closed the booklet once more, and the familiar system notifications surfaced in his mind. Realm, 100 refinements peak. Skills, 6th generation calisthenics peak, basic combat peak, black tiger art peak, black tiger palm peak, black tiger steps peak, tiger rending fist peak, mountain severing blade art peak. Mountain severing blade art had reached peak mastery. Li Zanshin stared intently at him. You have finished reading already? Yes. Are you certain there is nothing you fail to understand? Nothing. Li Zanshin stepped forward, uncertainty heavy in his voice. Tell me, you would not dare claim you have learned this one as well. Chen-Yi nodded. Something like that. Several disciples around him immediately held their breath. Even Elder Sun subconsciously lightened his movements, his gaze fixed firmly on Chen-Yi. The tiger rending fist had already been shocking enough. Had he also mastered the mountain severing blade art? It was a high-tier blade technique. It required not only mastery of the forms, but also the ability to channel vital energy into the blade. The smallest mistake could cause vital energy to recoil, at best, and damage one's meridians, at worst. The looks directed at Chen-Yi were no longer merely curious. They were filled with shock and disbelief. After 2 breaths, Li Xuanjin could no longer contain his agitation. Bring him a blade. The young man carrying blades froze on the spot. 6th Elder, the mountain severing blade art is no ordinary technique. Are we truly going to test it here? Li Xuanjin turned and shot him a sharp glare. I said bring the blade. Do you not understand? The blade. Wielding youth swallowed hard and dared not speak further. He quickly unslung the blade sheath from his back. Junior brother Chen, this is a 100 refined blade. It has no formal rank, but it will suffice for practice. Chen-Yi reached out to take the blade and walked to the center of the great hall. The curious disciples nearby stepped back of their own accord. Elder Sun moved beside the rosewood long table, a premonition stirring within him that something monumental was about to unfold. Holding the long blade, Chen-Yi settled into a steady stance. He made no superfluous movements. He simply lifted the blade and stepped forward with his right foot. Thick vital energy surged from within his body up his arm, channeling through his palm and crashing into the hilt. A faint crimson flame of vital energy soon wrapped around the sharp blade edge. The blade, carrying youth, stared in utter astonishment. Channel vital energy into the blade. He pulled it off straight away. Chen-Yi had succeeded the moment he took hold of the blade. He himself had spent ages training to achieve this step. The scarlet vital energy flame clung tightly to the blade, showing no sign of dissipating. Even with 2 cabinet air conditioners humming and blowing cold air, The temperature within the great hall rose slightly. In the next instant, Chun-Yi moved. His first strike descended with the momentum of splitting open a mountain. The long blade slashed fiercely downwards, a streak of crimson light pressing along the blade edge. A thick iron stake ahead split cleanly, the fracture smooth and neat. The two halves of the stake crashed to the ground with two dull thuds. He unleashed his second strike, a fierce horizontal slash. Vital energy concentrated at the midpoint of the blade, and the gleaming edge swept from left to right. Another iron stake beside him was cleanly severed at the waist, splinters scattering across the floor. The blade-wielding youth stood rigid. He could tell plainly that this was no hollow display. His stance, power transfer, and the control of vital energy were all flawless. He had endured immense hardship learning this blade art. It had taken him a full week just to memorize the verses. The first time he attempted channeling vital energy into the blade, he had nearly crippled his own arm. After 3 more months of relentless practice, he had barely managed to execute the first form. How on earth had Chun-Yi accomplished this? He had only skimmed through a few pages. The third and fourth strikes came in quick succession, followed by the fifth. This form was undoubtedly the hardest. It demanded channeling all of one's vital energy into the blade. The slightest misstep during execution would trigger a fatal backflow of vital energy. Chun-Yi pushed off the ground with all his strength, unleashing the full power of his peak 100 tempering vital energy. The vital energy flame coiling around the blade doubled in thickness. Li Xuanjun waved his hand, erecting a barrier of vital energy between the onlookers. Step back. All of you step back. Only then did the disciples snap out of their daze and hurry to press themselves against the walls. One breath later, Chun-Yi's long blade struck the black iron testing stone in the center of the great hall. A deafening boom echoed out. A deep blade mark split across the black iron stone. The blade stuck fast in the stone, and the surrounding ground trembled violently. At that moment, silence fell over the martial testing hall. Everyone stared blankly at the marked stone, no one daring to break the quiet. The blade-carrying youth stared at the gash on the stone, his voice trembling with awe. Impossible, this can't be. A nearby disciple pinched himself hard, wincing in pain. It hurts, it's real. But how could this be? Glance once at a high-tier blade art and master it instantly? And it was not a clumsy, incomplete mastery. Every form was perfect, achieved to the pinnacle. If Chun-Yi's cultivation had not remained at the 100 tempering realm, limiting his total reserves of vital energy, no one could imagine the destruction that fifth strike would have wrought. Elder Sun stared blankly at his tablet, utterly at a loss how to record what he had witnessed. The word genius was far too inadequate. How could one possibly put such extraordinary bone constitution and comprehension into writing? Even exaggerated descriptions would fail to capture the truth. Li Xuanjun stood where he was, his hands trembling faintly with excitement, his eyes blazing with fervor. He had served in the martial testing hall for many years, seeing those with excellent bone constitution and high comprehension. But he had never encountered someone as defying all logic, a monstrous prodigy like Chun-Yi. He would never have dared to imagine such a person even in his dreams. After a moment of stunned blankness, Li Xuanjun spun abruptly around. A tremendously powerful wave of vital energy erupted from his body. Elder Sun and the disciples stumbled backward under the pressure. Li Xuanjun fixed his cold gaze on the terrified onlookers and spoke sharply. What happened today ends here. Anyone who breathes a word of this will be charged with betraying the sect. He turned his emotionless, icy stare toward Elder Sun, erased the test records immediately. Elder Sun wiped the sweat from his forehead and nodded repeatedly. Yes, sixth elder. I will delete them at once. Not at once. Now. Yes. I am deleting them now. Still uneasy, Li Xuanjun swept his gaze over the young disciples. You all listen closely. Everything you have seen must remain buried in your hearts. If word leaks out, I will investigate each of you first. The several disciples bowed their heads in unison. We understand. We will never speak of this to others. Li Xuanjun turned back and seized Chun-Yi by the wrist. Chun-Yi raised an eyebrow slightly. Elder, where are we going? To see the sect master. No sooner had the words left Li Xuanjun's mouth than he surged forward, dragging Chun-Yi straight out of the martial testing hall. His speed was breathtaking. The buildings lining the mountain path blurred past them. They passed several patrolling disciples along the way. The disciples were about to bow in greeting when a gust of wind swept past. By the time they lifted their heads in confusion, Li Xuanjun and Chun-Yi had already vanished. It did not take long for the two to arrive before the main sect hall atop the mountain peak. A yawning disciple stood guard at the entrance. Seeing Li Xuanjun rushing toward him, the disciple hastily bowed. Sixth elder. Where is the sect master? Reporting to the sixth elder, the sect master is not in the main hall. He just returned to his cultivation chamber in the rear mountain. Li Xuanjin wasted no more words. He turned and dragged Chen Yi away. The guard disciples stood rooted to the spot, watching them race off in bewilderment. What is the sixth elder rushing about for? Has something terrible happened? Li Xuanjin hurried toward the rear mountain, ignoring the strange stares of everyone he passed. Soon they arrived outside a stone chamber. The heavy stone gate was tightly shut. Li Xuanjin raised his hand and knocked hard. There was no response from within. Li Xuanjin waited impatiently for several seconds before knocking again, harder this time. The hollow echoes reverberated down the corridor, yet the gate remained closed. Growing desperate, Li Xuanjin slammed his palm against the stone door. Sect Master, I have an urgent matter to report. Please open the gate. A deep, displeased voice echoed from inside the chamber. Li Xuanjin, if this is not important, you will report to the punishment hall for punishment today. Shui Tianhu pulled open the stone gate. He glanced first at Li Xuanjin, then at Chen Yi, and frowned. I sent you to test this youth's talent. Why have you come running to me? The frantic urgency on Li Xuanjin's face faded slightly. He pulled Chen Yi forward into the chamber and slammed the stone gate shut behind them. Shui Tianhu stared straight into Li Xuanjin's eyes, his expression stern. Speak. Li Xuanjin grinned, showing no trace of nervousness. He strode forward 2 paces, glanced at Chen Yi, then turned back to Shui Tianhu. Sect Master, I personally tested his bone constitution just now. Shui Tianhu remained seated calmly, waiting for him to continue. This boy likely possesses God-tier talent. In an instant, the confined stone chamber fell into complete silence. Shui Tianhu's hand, casually resting on his knee, froze mid-motion. His bone constitution is abnormal, utterly abnormal. His flesh, bones, and foundation of vital energy surpass all expectation. Judged by talent rankings, he is God-tier. But what is truly terrifying is not his bone constitution. It is his comprehension. You know the tiger-rending fist, yes? He watched it once and mastered it on the spot. The same for the mountain-severing blade art, that high-tier blade technique requiring vital energy channeling. He only saw it once. All 5 forms, mastered completely. Every path for channeling vital energy was executed without a single error. Shui Tianjin fixed his gaze firmly on Chen Yi. He had witnessed countless storms in his life and managed to keep his outward demeanor steady. After a long silence, Shui Tianhu finally spoke. Li Xuanjin, do you speak the truth? Every word. Quiet settled over the stone chamber once more. Shui Tianhu sat on the stone dais, his gaze locked on Li Xuanjin. You had best understand what you are claiming. Li Xuanjin slapped his thigh anxiously and pointed at Chen Yi. Sect Master, I stake my life on it. Not a single lie. If you doubt me, test him yourself. Shui Tianhu said nothing further. He stood abruptly and stepped before Chen Yi. Hold your vital energy steady. Chen Yi nodded. Shui Tianhu pressed his palm against Chen Yi's body. After only 2 touches, his fingers stiffened. He brought both hands to bear, casting aside all casualness as he continued his examination. Shock deepened in his eyes. The density of Chen Yi's skeleton and the foundation of his vital energy were simply absurd. This state far exceeded standard peak hunter tempering. Even many warriors who had just stepped into the vitality ignition realm could not match his physical strength. Shui Tianhu pulled his hands away and stared at Chen Yi for a full 30 seconds. You truly only practiced the Black Tiger art before this? Chen Yi answered crisply. I did. Who taught you? The Luo Martial Hall. Shui Tianhu glanced at Li Xuanjin, who spread his hands. I asked him earlier. He gave the same answer. Shui Tianhu fell silent for 2 breaths. He knew of places like the Luo Martial Hall, ordinary establishments that taught basic martial arts for commoners' fitness. The Black Tiger art, 1st and 2nd volumes, was the lowest grade of cultivation technique. Yet with nothing but that, Chen Yi had cultivated to such heights. If word reached Luo Yonghu himself, he would never believe it. Shui Tianhu turned back to Chen Yi and nodded repeatedly. Good. Very good. Chen Yi, you have extraordinary potential. His tone carried unprecedented solemnity, edged with excitement. I have lived many years, yet I have never encountered anyone with such solid bone constitution as you. Then starting today, Sect Master, hold on. Li Xuanjin could restrain himself no longer and cut Shui Tianhu off mid-sentence. His monstrous physique is impressive, but that is not the most frightening part. Shui Tianhu frowned, irritated at being interrupted. If not that, then what? Li Xuanjin swallowed hard, pointing at Chen Yi, his voice tight with emotion. His comprehension. This youth's power of understanding defies human limits. Shui Tianhu recalled what Li Xuanjin had told him earlier. I would not have dragged him rushing all the way here if that were all. Shui Tianhu's expression finally shifted. He stared intently at Li Xuanjin. He mastered all 5 forms of the mountain-severing blade art after seeing it once. Absolutely true. Li Xuanjin struck his chest in oath. Not a single deviation in his vital energy pathways. The vital energy flame clung stable to the blade edge. Several disciples in the martial testing hall witnessed everything. Shui Tianhu whipped his head toward Chun Yi, his Adam's apple bobbing. You truly only saw it once? Chun Yi nodded calmly. I saw it once. No one instructed you on channeling vital energy into the blade. You figured it out alone. Shui Tianhu pressed for confirmation again. The diagrams in the manual were clear enough. I simply followed them. Chun Yi replied casually. The next moment, Shui Tianhu suddenly burst into laughter. It began as quiet chuckles before growing louder and louder. Huh. Excellent. God. Tier talent. God. Tier comprehension. Truly excellent. His laughter echoed through the enclosed stone chamber, shaking dust loose from the rock walls. A smile spread across Li Xuanjin's face. He had been holding in his excitement for far too long. Ever since the rise of star cultivation, vital energy martial arts had been suppressed for 100 years. Star cultivation clans outside all looked down on the ancient martial path with contempt. The seclusion of Hun Tian's sect these years was not born of fear of conflict. Wasting the sect's foundations on meaningless battles during the lowest point of vital energy martial arts was unwise. But now Chun Yi had appeared. Only 19 years old, with staggeringly powerful bone constitution and inhumanly monstrous comprehension. This was far more than discovering a genius. This was a true dragon capable of shaking the world. Shui Tianhu stifled his laughter and looked at Chun Yi with complete sincerity. Chun Yi, Shui Tianhu spoke solemnly. Starting today, you are my personal disciple. You are also a true inheritance disciple of Hun Tian's sect for this generation. You will receive the highest tier of sect resources reserved for true inheritance disciples. You may access cultivation techniques, martial arts, medicinal baths, and weapons within sect rules. Anyone who dares block your path will answer to me personally. Hearing this, a wave of relief washed over Chun Yi, quickly followed by surging joy. It was settled. The primary goal that had brought him to Hun Tian's sect was fully achieved. He had only hoped to join the sect and gain access to cultivation techniques. He never imagined he would be taken directly as the sect master's personal disciple. All because of his talent and comprehension. Talent and bone constitution do not appear on my status panel, but they must exist all the same. And like my other attributes, they double every single day. Chun Yi felt a surge of shock. Only 5 days had passed since the system bound to him. If his attributes continued doubling upon their current base each day, what would he become 10 days from now? A month from now? Chun Yi dared not imagine how terrifying his power, talent, and comprehension would grow. How stunned would Shui Tianhu and the others be once they learned the truth? What joy! This is tremendous fortune for our sect master. Li Xuanjin rubbed his hands constantly, his face flushed with excitement. Hun Tian's sect has not accepted a new true inheritance disciple in years, let alone a once-in eternity prodigy such as him. True inheritance status requires recording in the sect archives, opening the ancestral hall, and notifying all peaks. I propose we hold an immediate apprenticeship ceremony. Invite all the influential powers of Kunlun City, and then... Silence. Shui Tianhu cut Li Xuanjin off before he could finish. His expression darkened sharply. What pointless ceremony do you speak of? Do you wish to hasten our doom? Li Xuanjin froze in confusion. Sect master? Shui Tianhu's gaze turned cold as he looked at him. Do you not understand the current state of the world outside? Star cultivators rule the lands. Star god clans and top factions control all resources. They hate seeing vital energy martial arts rise again. The reason Hun Tian's sect maintains seclusion is to avoid their sharp edge. Shui Tianhu turned his gaze back to Chun Yi, deep thought in his eyes. Chun Yi's talent is far too monstrous. If news of it spreads, do you believe those outside star cultivation forces will let him cultivate in peace? The ceremony cannot happen. Not only that, everything that took place in the martial testing hall must be sealed tightly. Shui Tianhu issued a clear order to Li Xuanjin. Only you, I, and the disciples present in the hall may know. Not a word to anyone else. We will announce publicly that Chun Yi is merely an exceptionally recruited outer disciple. His status as a true inheritance disciple will remain hidden for now. Li Xuanjin's excitement faded as he thought it through. He understood the principle that innocence is no protection when one possesses coveted treasure. I understand, Sect Master. I have already silenced everyone in the martial testing hall. Stress this one more time. Anyone who leaks information will face charges of sect betrayal. Li Xuanjin composed his expression. Understood. Xue Tianhu looked again at Chun Yi. The formal apprenticeship rites will be postponed. We will complete them when the time is right. Chun Yi, delaying the ceremony may seem unfair to you, but it is to keep you safe. Do you harbor any grievances? Chun Yi answered without hesitation. None. He cared nothing for pomp and ceremony. Gatherings and applause were empty formalities. He had come here for cultivation techniques. With that thought, Chun Yi stepped forward and bowed. Master. The address came clear and unhesitating. Sect Master Xue's eyes lit up with satisfaction. Rise. Chun Yi stood upright. He wasted no time on polite pleasantries and went straight to the point. Master, my priority is cultivation. I came to Hun Tian sect seeking cultivation techniques. He could not afford to waste time. His parents remained in critical care, and his younger sister was still missing. Every moment must be spent growing stronger. Xue Tianhu looked into Chun Yi's eyes, burning with hunger for power. Far from feeling displeased, he grew increasingly satisfied. A true warrior ought to possess such pure desire for strength. Well said. Xue Tianhu waved his hand boldly and agreed at once. Since you're eager to begin your training, I shall grant your wish this very moment. Xue Tianhu fell silent and turned to walk outside. Chun Yi followed behind him, with Li Xuanjin hurrying along beside them. The old man's face flushed with unrestrained excitement. The three traversed the mountain path at the rear of the mountain. Further inward, fewer figures could be seen. Old pine trees bowed their branches along the trail, and wind rustled through the woods. Not far away stood a tall black building. The structure clung tightly against a sheer cliff. It rose 5 stories high, constructed entirely from timber and stone joined by mortise and tenon joints. Its upturned eaves were a deep, somber black, exuding an oppressive, frigid aura. It was a world apart from the dilapidated halls they had passed earlier. Silence hung heavy in the surroundings, without a single patrolling disciple in sight. 2 red-robed stewards stood rigidly at the entrance, blades hanging at their waists. Upon spotting Xue Tianhu, they quickly bowed their heads in greeting. Sect Master. Xue Tianhu nodded. Open the gate. One steward pulled out a bronze tablet and pressed it firmly into a recess set into the wall beside the door. A click echoed, and the thick wooden gate swung inward. Chun Yi lifted his gaze. 3 characters were carved into the black wooden plaque mounted on the door, Scripture Repository. Xue Tianhu stepped inside, his voice steady. This is the core grounds for martial arts manuals of the Han Heavenly Sect. There are 5 floors in total. The first floor holds miscellaneous materials, cultivation insights, old notes and travel journals left by generations of disciples, alongside scattered fragments of various texts. The second floor contains elementary cultivation methods and martial techniques. The third floor houses advanced arts, including many techniques for the third realm. The fourth floor holds top-tier cultivation methods. Chun Yi cut in. What about the 5th floor? Xue Tianhu did not slow his pace, offering no reservations. Supreme cultivation arts, the foundational heritage of the Han Heavenly Sect. Apart from myself and the Elder Supreme who secludes himself deep in the rear mountain, no other person is permitted to set eyes on them. Chun Yi glanced toward the staircase and said nothing. Yet the heavy weight that had lingered in his chest for a long time finally lifted slightly. He had come to the Han Heavenly Sect for precisely this. The first floor was spacious, yet dimly lit. Rows upon rows of bookshelves stood packed full of texts. Miscellaneous volumes, fragmented manuals, and travel records lay in disarray. Gray, robed and white-robed disciples occupied most of the space, some flipping through books, others murmuring quietly. All rose hastily to salute when Xue Tianhu entered. Greetings, Sect Master. Sect Master. Xue Tianhu waved his hand and led Chun Yi straight upward. Only after the 3 departed did activity resume on the first floor. Who's that young man? He isn't even wearing a disciple uniform. No idea. Probably some young noble pushed into the sect through connections. Hold your tongue. Anyone brought here personally by the sect master is not someone you ought to question. After a few idle remarks, silence descended over the first floor once more. On the staircase, Xue Tianhu slowed his steps and spoke slowly. The Han Heavenly Sect abides by many rules. You will grow familiar with them as time passes. He continued as they walked. Within the sect, status is identified by robes. Outer sect disciples wear gray, inner sect white, core disciples green, personal disciples blue. Stewards don red robes, while elders mostly wear golden or pale gold garments. Chun Yi nodded. What about me? Li Xuanjin cut in eagerly. You will receive treatment equal to the sect master's personal disciple, ranking as a personal disciple. Shui Tianhu shot him a glare. Li Xuanjin cleared his throat and hastily added, though this status will remain undisclosed for now. Chen Yi nodded. Secrecy suited him fine. All he needed was time. Pomp and status meant nothing. Fewer people populated the second floor, mostly white, robed inner sect disciples mixed with a handful of green, robed core disciples. Martial arts manuals lined the shelves in neat ranks, their titles blunt and unrefined. Iron body art, rock, shattering fist, wind, splitting leg, Hengshan blade technique. Chen Yi barely spared them a glance. Such techniques were flagship offerings at ordinary martial academies outside, merely gathering dust within the Han Heavenly Sect. The three kept climbing. The third floor was far quieter. No gray or white robes could be seen, only several green, robed core disciples. When they caught sight of Shui Tianhu, they stepped aside and bowed. After straightening, their gazes lingered on Chen Yi for a prolonged moment as he passed the bookshelves. Several titles caught his eye. Peak, Sundering Palm, Tianhe Movement Skill, Red Saber Cannon, Blazing Viscera Refining Method, Blazing the Third Realm. Chen Yi halted involuntarily. Shui Tianhu noticed instantly. Do not be hasty. These can benefit you, yet they are not what you ought to study right now. Chen Yi regained his stride and followed, asking no questions. If Shui Tianhu had brought him here personally, he would not be limited to these ordinary arts. A red bronze lock hung at the entrance to the fourth floor. It functioned less as a lock and more as a marker of authority. Shui Tianhu pulled out his sect master token and pressed it against the bronze lock. Click. The crimson patterns on the lock dimmed. The door stood slightly ajar, and Shui Tianhu pushed it open. It was quieter still than the third floor. The number of bookshelves had greatly diminished. Redwood display stands held jade slips, ancient scrolls, and old manuscripts sealed within wooden caskets. Only one person occupied the vast fourth floor. A young woman sat at a wooden table beside the window, dressed in white casual wear with long hair cascading over her shoulders, reading a yellow, bound manuscript. She lifted her head at the sound. It was Hu Xianer from the Red Moon Kingdom. Upon seeing Shui Tianhu, she closed the book, rose, and folded her hands to offer a standard junior salute. Greetings, Sect Master Shui. Her tone was cool, her etiquette flawless without fault. Shui Tianhu nodded politely, wearing a welcoming smile. Miss Hu reading? Yes. In the next instant, her gaze shifted to Chen Yi behind Shui Tianhu. Chen Yi recognized her too. He had ridden up the mountain alongside Hu Yan, never exchanging a single word. Back then, she had not spared him so much as a glance. Now she watched him intently. Hu Xianer pressed a finger against the edge of her manuscript, making no move to turn the page. She remembered Chen Yi. Her hearing was sharp, and she never forgot faces. On the transport carriage, Hu Yan had spoken to this young man. He had said he planned to learn martial arts at the Han Heavenly Sect during the journey up the mountain. She had long judged him to be an ordinary youth from Kyushu. He possessed a modest foundation in martial arts, yearned for the ancient fighting traditions, and sought entry to the Han Heavenly Sect, only to likely be turned away in the end. Countless such mediocre dreamers existed. They had crossed paths once. She could see and hear clearly, yet had deemed him unworthy of her attention. Shui Tianhu noticed Hu Xianer's stare, but offered no explanation. Please continue your reading, Miss Hu. I shall head upstairs first. After the polite remark, he turned to Chen Yi. Come. Chen Yi paid her no mind. He acknowledged the instruction and followed Shui Tianhu toward a narrow wooden staircase deeper within the room. This led to the fifth floor. It was unusually narrow, with not a single guard posted at its entrance. Hu Xianer stood rooted to the spot, watching the three pass beside her. The sect master, alongside the sixth elder, leading the young man she had dismissed as ordinary, heading upward. Hu Xianer immediately grasped the weight of what she witnessed. Shui Tianhu treated her with courtesy and permitted her access to the top-tier arts on the fourth floor, yet he had never once mentioned the fifth floor. She knew well enough not to ask. It was the lifeblood of the Han Heavenly Sect, forbidden territory for outside guests. No matter her special standing, she and Hu Yan's origins only granted them access up to the fourth floor. They held no qualification to step foot on the fifth. But now, Chen Yi was ascending. Hu Xianer stared fixedly at Chen Yi, watching him climb step by step behind Shui Tianhu. Each creak of the wooden steps gnawed at her composure. When their figures vanished beyond the stairwell, her calm expression crumbled completely. The fifth floor? Shui Tianhu was taking him to the fifth floor? That unassuming young man was entering the restricted heart of the Han Heavenly Sect? What right did he have? Who exactly was he? Silence returned to the fourth floor. Hu Xener sank back into her chair and attempted to read, yet the characters on the yellow pages blurred beyond recognition. Her mind was filled entirely with Chen Yi's face. The face she had once thought not worth a single glance. She lifted her head and stared toward the end of the staircase, curiosity burning deep in her eyes. Chen Yi. The staircase leading to the 5th floor remained narrow. Chen Yi climbed upward behind Xue Tianhu. After a short distance, Xue Tianhu came to a stop and pressed several marked positions on the wall beside the door. Click. A series of sounds echoed inside as mechanisms unlocked one after another. Moments later, a black door swung inward. Chen Yi looked on. The 5th floor was spacious, yet sparsely furnished. There were no endless rows of bookshelves or stacks of manuscripts like the lower levels. Only a handful of racks and display stands stood here, each holding merely 1 or 2 items. Wooden caskets, jade slips, ancient manuscripts. The collection was tiny. Yet Chen Yi could tell at once these treasures existed on an entirely different level from everything below. Meanwhile, deep within the 5th floor sat an elderly white-haired woman. She wore a plain old robe, her hair neatly combed, with a wooden staff resting beside her. Though extremely advanced in years, her back remained straight. Xue Tianhu did not march straight forward upon entering. He paused to bow. "Greetings, Senior Zhao." Li Xuanzhen bowed after him, and Chen Yi followed suit without hesitation. The old woman said nothing, offering only a slight nod. Only then did Xue Tianhu turn to introduce Chen Yi. "Chen Yi, this is Senior Zhao. She oversees the 5th floor all year round." Chen Yi bowed again. "Greetings, Senior." Senior Zhao still did not speak. Her cloudy eyes settled on Chen Yi, observing him for a long while with evident inquisitiveness. Xue Tianhu offered no further explanation. He knew Senior Zhao could discern many things. Since she asked no questions, it meant they might proceed. He then led Chen Yi deeper into the chamber. "Take a good look. This is the 5th floor. Any single manual here qualifies as a supreme cultivation art. These form the core inheritance of our Han Heavenly Sect. The collection is small, yet it covers a complete cultivation system." Chen Yi listened, his gaze sweeping across the display stands. Cultivation methods, combat techniques, movement arts, body tempering practices, and jade slips whose purpose he could not yet determine. Xue Tianhu halted before the central stand, upon which rested a thick ancient manuscript. He picked it up and handed it to Chen Yi. "The Han Heavenly Divine Art. Take it. This is the foundational cultivation method of our sect, containing the complete path through the first 5 realms." Chen Yi accepted the manuscript, his fingers tightening slightly. Xue Tianhu looked at him earnestly. "The complete version of our Han Heavenly Sect's art stretches from physical refinement all the way to the 9th realm. Still, rules cannot be broken lightly. Today you shall receive only the techniques for the first 5 realms. Once you break through the 5th realm, you may return to obtain the rest." Chen Yi nodded. "Thank you, Master." For his present needs, the first 5 realms were more than sufficient. At the very least, they would serve him well for a long time to come.